Hello and welcome to day 2 of the North American School Scrabble Championship 2023. I'm Hannah Lieberman.
And I'm Jackson Smiley.
And we are here to bring you games on the final day of School Scrabble Nationals. We're going to bring you a championship game this morning. That's our younger division. Who are we seeing today, Jackson?
Today, we're going to see two top teams who are, I think, sitting near the top of the division. We have the Tile Blazers, which is Nathaniel Campos from Connecticut and Walden Giesentanner from St. Louis, Missouri. And they're going up against Jonathan Kai and Leah Shin.
So we saw Jonathan and Leah yesterday. They played amazingly well. If I'm not mistaken, Nathaniel and Walden are actually at the top of the division right now. Both teams are undefeated, so it just comes down to spread, and both teams obviously gunning for that spot in the finals. So,
and the Tile Blazers are actually the defending champions. They won last year, and Nathaniel Campos is only in 7th grade, so he's trying to make a second win here, and hopefully maybe even a third if he can make that next year as well.
He's in 7th grade, but he's been playing since 2018, which, if I'm doing the math, that was a young Scrabbler who's already coming up pretty dramatically. So, we saw incredible play from Leah and Jonathan yesterday. They're going to have their work cut out for them. One of these teams is going to emerge undefeated going into the 7th round of the day. So, this is a big one. The stakes are a little bit higher this game.
And if you're just joining us now, this is round 6. Everyone has played 5 games so far, and what we're going to do is play 8 games total. And after 8 games, the top 2 teams break for a 1-game championship match.
Absolutely. So all these teams right now are vying to qualify for that final. And we're, of course, going to be bringing you those finales live here on Twitch, so you can also check those out. If you're just joining us, we're here for School Scrabble Nationals 2023, or not Nationals, North American School Scrabble Championships. Shout out to our Canadian teams. And we're about to see a great game in our championship division. That's, I believe, 3rd through 8th grade. We've got some youngins here. And we're going to be seeing the Tile Blazers. That's Nathaniel and Walden versus Jonathan and Leah. We saw them play just so beautifully yesterday. I'm trying to think back to that game. I feel like something that really impressed me was how much discipline they had, self-discipline of being patient and waiting for the right play to happen. I thought we saw really mature Scrabble playing.
Yeah, I was very impressed. They're so patient, waiting for the hooks to come up and keeping their tiles and maximizing how much value they could get from them. I was very impressed with that.
Right.
But I'm excited to see the defending champions play as well. We have not seen them on stream yet this year. But one of the players on that team is no stranger to competition. Nathaniel Campos actually won Division 4 in the North American Scrabble Championship, playing against adults all the way up to any age you want. He won Division 4 with a 25-win, 5-loss record. He won before the tournament even ended. And so he has an official rating with the North American Scrabble Players Association. And so I'm excited to see what they bring to the table as defending champions.
Absolutely. Though, as we've seen from yesterday, doing well in adult Scrabble tournaments doesn't mean you're going to have a breeze of a time here at School Scrabble, because some of these kids are, Leah Shin comes from a whole dynasty of Scrabble players. She comes from multi-generational Scrabble family. We saw amazing play from Jonathan yesterday. I'm sure they're nothing to sniff at. So,
yeah, and some of the newer players as well, they can really take to it like duck to water. We've seen, and as we see, Jonathan Kai just started playing during COVID a couple of years ago, but already he's playing on the national stage. And so some of these kids get good pretty fast. You don't know who's been studying, who's been practicing.
Absolutely. School Scrabble tournaments aren't as frequent. And so sometimes kids make these big leaps in the time in between. Hi, Lindsay Shin. Lindsay Shin, Leah Shin's mom, is here in the chat. She's just lovely. Something I'm really excited to see too is these. I feel like these are probably really evenly matched teams, but so much of Scrabble also comes down to luck. We saw that in a few games yesterday where the tile gods just were unkind to some players. Other players got really lucky breaks. So even the best team can be foiled if they're stuck with all val racks, three racks in a row.
Exactly. Yeah. As defending champions, I'm sure they want to extend their lead. I think the Tile Blazers are undefeated so far at 5-0. And now one loss does not kick them out. Every team does play every round. And at the end of the tournament, we see who has the most wins, who has the fewest losses, and we figure out the top 2 teams from there. That said, one loss does not kick you out, but every team wants to win every game to try to
It's
make the
true.
finals if they
We're
can.
certainly getting to fewer and fewer undefeated teams at this point. Both of the teams we're seeing this morning are undefeated. When the teams are undefeated, it then comes down to spread, and we've had some spread caps. I think the spread cap is at like 250 now, if I'm not mistaken, which is pretty large. I imagine we're not going to see a blowout that size this morning. These 2 teams are I think we're going to see a close game, and I'm excited to watch that happen.
And so we have 5 undefeated teams in total.
5, okay.
5 in total, and so after this round, it will probably be down to 2 or 3, and we might see a couple of the undefeated matches tomorrow as well.
Well, not tomorrow, but later today.
Next round.
Next round. It's tomorrow to us. It feels like a day. I'm super excited. I think the teams are still setting up. They should be ready in just a moment to get going. Let's talk a little bit about the non-Scrabble-y sides of these teams, where they're from. I know that Nathaniel and Walden they're both 7th grade. No.
I think Walden's an 8th grader.
Walden is an 8th grader,
so 7th grader.
So this will be Walden's last year playing in the championship division.
And they've come together as a multi-city team. It seems like they were put together through their shared Scrabble coach, Cornelia Guest. So Nathaniel Campos comes from Ridgefield, Connecticut, and Walden Gitzen Tanner comes from St. Louis, Missouri. So I don't know how they've been practicing together, maybe over some Zoom calls. They've been training. But we have a lot of multi-city teams in this tournament.
Awesome. We are about to start that game for you. Walden has a high-scoring last name.
It
racks up a lot of points, Scrabble-wise. Alrighty, so here we go. They are going to be drawing their first tiles. We've got Leah and Jonathan versus Nathaniel and Walden. And let's see, pretty close spreads as well, about 150-point difference. A win by 75 points by Leah and Jonathan will bring them right up to that spread. And, of course, put them 1 win ahead. All right, starting off strong.
It's Leah and Jonathan to go first. And they draw quite a few consonants to start. But it seems like they found a way to get rid of a couple of their clunkier consonants with the word veg, short form for veggie.
They're also considering, looks like they were looking at Meg. I do think getting rid of that V is a smart option. Germ is also great just because you get rid of one more consonant.
Yeah, that always helps.
I think that would be a good decision. We see a Q and a U on Nathaniel and Walden's rack, that's a lucky pick there.
And they elect to go with germ, which is a smart play. You don't want to keep 4 constants all the time.
Absolutely.
You can run into some risk with that. And we see Nathaniel and Walden have alphabetized their tiles. And so they've put all their tiles in alphabetical order. And that, I think, really is a mark of a seasoned tournament player. And I know Nathaniel's played quite a few tournaments. As we were saying, he won the Division 4 at the Baltimore North American Championship. And a lot of players study using these alphabetical techniques. You alphabetize your tiles, and you can recognize the word that might be in there more easily.
What's tough for them right now is for Nathaniel and Walden. They have these amazing tiles, but Leah and Jonathan didn't do them any favors with how they started. It looks like they're going to play Quare so that they can at least get the Q on a double letter. I don't think that's a bad move at all. It leaves them with a pretty great leave, EGO. Sometimes we saw this in a few games yesterday. If a player is waiting for the perfect opportunity to play their power tile, it ends up actually, biting them in the butt a bit.
Exactly. And especially with the Q. The Q is famously not as good of a tile as it seems. Even when you have a U alongside it, it's usually a good idea to kind of get rid of it and get some fresh tiles to work with.
Absolutely. The nice thing about that play for Leah and Jonathan is they didn't really have an opportunity to score much. They once again have 6 consonants. Now it looks like they're considering playing VIN, hooking QI and UN. I think that would be a solid play. Wished you could get rid of one more consonant, maybe play DINT instead. But
DINT could work as well.
I get the urge to get rid of that V.
And here we see, we were talking about the element of luck in this game. Right now on the two teams' racks, you can really see how this element of luck is coming into play. While Leah and Jonathan have a bunch of duplicate N's and T's and a V, Nathaniel and Walden drew that really precious blank tile, and they're very likely going to bingo next turn.
All right, so they're going with Tint. Maybe they weren't sure about Dint, but I still think that's an excellent play. They've got to get rid of those consonants. Also, just a little bit to stop the S hook to make square. Not completely stop it. You can end a word in EST or something like that, but it helps a little bit with blocking that lane down.
And now it looks like Nathaniel and Walden will have to work with the germs hook if they want to make their blank tile an S. And they do have a couple of words in there, and it looks like they found them quite quickly. It looks like they're laying down gelatos, which is a brilliant find.
Oh, great word.
They waste no time to get that word on the board, and it looks like their best play available.
Absolutely. Now, when you play all 7 letters, if you're just joining us in the Scrabble world here, it's called a bingo, and you get an extra 50 points. So incredibly valuable in this game. Gelatos was a great find.
And they take an early lead, going up by around 60 points. But really anything can happen. This early in the game, there's really no winners or losers decided. And it looks like Lee and Jonathan actually drew the second blank alongside some consonants. But that's really good. Even though they may not be able to bingo immediately, it really sets them up well to mount their comeback now that they're behind a bit.
Absolutely. I'm eager to see them get rid of that V because I've seen them consider it every turn. V's are tricky letters because they don't take any 2-letter words. So it's hard to kind of stack a word with a V. When we see this stacking like we saw with Tint, they made 4 different words. They're getting points for all of those all in one move. Great letters for Nathaniel and Walden They made their sacrifices to the tile gods this morning.
And they also immediately line up the 2 bingos in their 7 tiles. They're kind of showing the stream that they found them both. Right now they have urinide set up, and right before that they had put unaired.
Absolutely.
And again, that really shows they've been studying, they've been memorizing their words.
Absolutely. And when you're thinking about, well, gosh, how do they go about learning all the 7-letter words? They're probably not learning them all, or if they are, I'm very impressed. But they're probably looking at these really common letters. So, all of these are very low-scoring tiles. The D is 2 points. Everything else is 1 point. And that's because these are really common letters. We're going to see them a lot. So it's kind of easier to pick out, hey, this is what I want to study. This is what I'm likely to draw. Oh, love it. They're playing veg. They're hooking it with that. They've got the V going both ways. And Leah and Jonathan, now they also have that blank. A pretty solid leave.
And now here's another test for Nathaniel and Walden because they have urinide and unaired that they clearly saw quite quickly set up on their rack. I don't think there's actually a place to play them. However, there is a quite obscure 8-letter word that they could play from the M in germs.
Oh,
and I'm curious to see if they've been studying their 8-letter words as well as their 7-letter words.
I don't know what it is.
They have the word murainid, M-U-R-A-E-N-I-D, that they could play from the M.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And we'll see if they can spot it. It's quite an obscure word, and so it does take some serious study to get there. And
yes, some people are saying in the chat if they spot murainid, that would be absolutely insane. Even if they don't spot it, they are, you know what? The fact that they found urinide so quickly looks like they're considering playing uni off of gelatos, which I think would be a great move. It gives them an incredible leave. Or maybe they're considering doing something off of queer. I saw them pointing down there, but I think stacking. Oh, they can't stack uni with gelatos. I'm silly.
Oh, they're deciding to put an R on the word queer, which is actually not a word.
I didn't think it was a word. That's why I was a little confused about the placement. Vega is a word, so that was smart to think to hook that way. Looks like Leah and Jonathan are just accepting the play.
I think they're accepting. It's a pretty tough challenge, if you're not sure if queer takes an R.
Right.
However, that play scores a lot of points for Nathaniel and Walden, and so now they get their 34 points of that play. It really puts them ahead by 70 points now.
Absolutely. I think what's tricky here is this cost benefit analysis. If you're not sure if it's a word or not, if you lose that challenge and they then get another turn, now you've gone from being about a bingo away to being really behind in the game pretty early on. And it should be noted that Quarer is good in a different lexicon, a different dictionary called Collins, which is not what we're playing with today, but interesting to see. Maybe they've been studying their Collins words. You can see it down here. It looks like still so many consonants with Leah and Jonathan. They've never had more than one natural vowel on their rack. I imagine it looks like they're going to possibly stack their N below Vega to make vegan. That could be a good option. They could also do something like that along gelatos, like HON, get rid of those double N's.
Yeah, both those are great plays. And it looks like they found the N hook on Vega, which is fantastic, and they're playing ON there. See, I would have loved to see maybe the H tacked on as well to get rid of the extra consonant along to keep a more bingo prone leave.
I think they're maybe enamored with the TH that they have, which I understand. Maybe they're also thinking statistically they're bound to pick another vowel.
But unfortunately, it won't happen right now. It would be nice to see at least one vowel draw there.
Now, there is one lucky thing here, which is even with no vowels, they do have the word NTH if they wanted to stack somewhere. They can start with some vowels on the board to go through things, but other than that, they might just have to trade in some tiles. Nathaniel and Walden have the opposite problem. They've got a lot of vowels.
And however, that means they're also going to give an E to Leah and Jonathan that they can play through. And so I think that E and Q will be really useful for Leah and Jonathan to use a few consonants with. They have a few nice words there. The word tend, they could play a few words like that.
I could totally see just anything to get rid of. You just got to get rid of maybe 3 consonants. The whole one consonant at a time thing hasn't been working for them. Looks like they're considering NTH off of Q, which I think would be so smart. Again, that's not a word you necessarily use every day unless you're, I don't know, a mathematician, something like to the nth degree. And so they've definitely been studying the fact that they know that. Oops, put that in on top. There we go. And that's some great stacking. You might think, God, you got to study those 7-letter words, but knowing your 2s, knowing your 3s, equally, if not more important.
Yeah, and NTH is a really tough word to see, even if you know it. Sometimes, you have all consonants. You're like, oh, well, I don't have any words in here, obviously. But NTH really proved useful. They finally drew another vowel. Let's see if they can get one more vowel to balance out those heavy consonants they have.
They picked a J and an S. Super, great letters, not conducive to bingoing, but they can certainly score some points, which they need right now.
And it looks like Nathaniel and Walden are considering the obscure 4-letter word a yin, which does play next to gelatos. And gelatos is a nice word because it can play a lot of parallel words beside it. And the kids are probably looking, where can I play on this board? Where's a good spot? And next to gelatos with those alternating vowels and consonants means it's really easy to play words right next to it, making all these 2-letter words. And a yin will fit right there for 27 points.
I think it's iron because I don't know if either Nathaniel or Walden is going to Hebrew school and studying for a bar mitzvah right now, but Hebrew letters are very useful in Scrabble. Ayin, Aleph. Do you know there was a long period where I thought it was retina, to Tina something again. It's retina. Yeah. The words you learn through Scrabble.
I didn't realize ayin was a Hebrew letter. But I'm not surprised. I think all the Hebrew
you got
letters
all the Hebrew letters in there.
And that's a fantastic play. And there still is a Z out, if I'm not mistaken. And you can put a Z in front of ayin to make Zion. I don't think that's a Hebrew letter, but I couldn't be sure. It could be.
I have to go through my alphabet. Aleph, Bet, Vek, and Malade.
So there could be a few options for whoever draws a Z. It's possible to play there. And now on this board, we see the word tint that Leah and Jonathan played earlier. That might become important because you can also put an S in front of the word tint.
Absolutely.
And there's a really nice, what we call bingo lane. It's a spot a team could use to play a 7-letter word. If they have a word ending in S, it will fit right there using stint. And I think that might become important later in the game, especially for Leah and Jonathan, who currently have both an S and a blank.
Now, according to Quackle, which is a software that tells us what, statistically the best play would be, it looks like their best option would be to play CADS, CADS off of IN, or just CAD. For the sake of getting rid of the C and the extra D, they don't have a great play for the J at this moment. That doesn't require them to use other really good tiles. So it looks like they found CAD.
And that would be a fantastic play.
Incredibly solid choice. It doesn't quite get them the points they're looking for, but it also doesn't set their opponents up any further because C is another one of those really tricky letters that does not take any 2-letter words.
And we should note that Leah and Jonathan are actually both in 5th grade.
Wow.
And so they're one of the youngest teams in the competition, and they're 5-0, which also means they have 3 years ahead of them to keep competing back at this tournament. I don't know if you can do much better than 5-0.
We're certainly going to see them next year. Looks like are they trading?
I think they exchanged tiles.
You know what? Quackle also said that was a really solid option. And something very mature we saw here is that they traded in the J. That can be really hard to do because you think, gosh, there's only one J. That's such a coup. They traded the C, both the D's, and the J. It looks like it's paying off. Oh, absolutely. They've got some really bingo-friendly letters.
So hopefully they can find a word there. We'll see if they see the stint hook. It's not obvious, but I think they might have a couple words that play there.
If they already have a word set up on their rack, if the blank is a T, I believe they have beastie set up on their rack.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic find. It's not an obvious word either, the word beastie.
Absolutely. They could also, if they wanted to hook that S, I think beanies would work, like the hat.
Beanies, right. Now, Nathaniel and Walden have quite a sizable lead at this point. They're up by 84 points. And so from their perspective, they're thinking and they're asking themselves, how can I hang on to this lead? What can I do to make sure that I don't let the other team come back?
Right. At this point, the board is open enough that they couldn't possibly block all the bingo lanes that their opponents have.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to block
playing
stint,
defensively,
especially.
Right. They couldn't block stint. RE is also right there on the board for something going horizontal. Using it, RE takes a lot of words after it. Looks like they're going with hide, which is a great word. They're stacking. They're getting points.
And I think you're right. That is a smart decision. Sometimes when there's many bingo lanes available on the board, it's not worth blocking if you can't block all of them. And I think they made a smart decision by just scoring points, hoping that, if they keep scoring their points consistently, that they'll be able to outrun anything that Leah and Jonathan
Absolutely.
come up
Now,
with.
Leah and Jonathan don't have any bingos that start with an S to play off of AYE, at least not that I know of. It looks like they're seeing Beastie down with Reb. Their best play is actually to do something ending in EST and make squarer. Get points for that cue. They have beadiest, beakiest, and beamiest are also words, but they're kind of less intuitive words.
And it looks like they are coming up with their bingo, Beastie, making the blank a T, which is a fantastic play. And it also shows some studying on their part.
Absolutely.
It's not a word that everyone can come up with and be sure of to play, even along with the word Reb, which is another obscure 3-letter word.
I'm really glad we didn't see them hook an S on NTH. I believe it
Exactly.
does not take an S. I saw them point down there, and then they decided better not risk it. Even though the E sets up a really, really nice triple lane for their opponents, they said, you know what? We are not going to take that risk of being challenged off. Man, they are a consonant magnet today.
And this puts them down 43, which definitely gets them a lot closer than before. Another couple good plays, and they could be right back in this game.
Exactly. Glad to see they got some fouls.
Yeah. What's nice as well is that by playing Beastie down there, is they're keeping the S hooks on Querer and Tint alive for later. And as I was saying before, it's very difficult to block those spots. From Nathaniel and Walden's perspective, you kind of want to be a bit defensive when you're ahead. However, sometimes there's nothing you can do, and they can't really do much about those hooks. And so it's kind of a race to whoever can hit those spots first.
Absolutely. So Nathaniel and Walden, I think at this point they know, even if it's not their personal favorite play, that they probably need to do something off of, looks like he's finding toe line. Great word. Or towel. That's also just as great. They say, you know what, we got to use that triple so our opponents can't.
Exactly. And that E would have been very useful for Leah and Jonathan as well.
Absolutely. E's are beautiful letters. I think Leah and Jonathan, one benefit of having the V is that they actually can stack off of Hyde without setting up a triple lane. Because again, V doesn't take any 2-letter words. They could play VIN off of Hyde, give themselves a balanced rack, and not open up another triple for Nathaniel and Walden.
Definitely, these racks each player has is kind of a theme of the game for each of them. Nathaniel and Walden have been having a lot more vowels overall, the Tile Blazers, but they've been doing pretty well with their vowel-heavy racks overall.
What's really impressive here is that both teams have known the dumps they can use to get rid of these tiles. They've clearly, on the cheat sheet, they've been studying their consonant dumps and their vowel dumps, which are great ways to get rid of these excessive letters. Finding acai.
Yeah,
it's like they're considering OI, but OTE is not a word. I'm sure Leah knows that.
They may be considering with OH.
That would be a little on the risky side.
Although they do have an L if they wanted to play oil.
So true. And how many L's are out? 2 L's already out, so. They're also considering AVO, AVO. Oh, I want them to look in that top right corner.
For the word VIN?
For VIN. Something we see with these players that when you get to this advanced level is that they're not just making the word, he's saying, look, we can do oil later. Jonathan is really setting up a few steps ahead. Very, very smart. But we see that they're not just crafting a word on their rack and then looking for the spot. They're really thinking about the board and then looking at what they have. It's a real difference.
It looks like they're going for OI, which is, I think, a fantastic play.
Absolutely.
Because what's important is that the word OI, you cannot put an S after that. There's no OIS in the dictionary, and so you can pretty much only put a K or an L, and they have the L for next turn.
Brilliant by Nathaniel and Walden. They've got the C to reach up to the triple. Another benefit of VIN, you're blocking that.
Right. That's a fantastic find. And scores super well, getting rid of all their vowels. That's kind of the ideal play that everyone looks for every turn. You're hoping to get rid of the tiles you don't want on your rack. You're hoping to score some points, and that's exactly the play they're looking for.
Absolutely. Gosh, the curse. The curse continues for Leah and Jonathan. They're playing so well, given this, consonant-heavy thing they've been dealing with. They know that they have their L to play with oil. They're going to try and hook something there. They don't have terribly many options.
Oh, yeah, with all those constants. And I wonder if, the last time we saw Leah and Jonathan, we saw them wait on a hook. 2 times in that game, they had a Y hook on the word dirt, and they didn't take it immediately. They were like, we want to wait for a better play. And I'm wondering if they're going to do the same thing this time. Maybe keep the L for next turn, hope for an even better play. I think that would be a smart choice if they go for that. Absolutely.
I think there's, a lot of times with Scrabble, we do wishful thinking where, at least I do this, where I try and justify a word in my head. I'm like, yeah, BILD, that's probably, right. I can say it. It's probably an alternate spelling of something. But I don't think they have any 4-letter words with the L in that 3rd spot, unless I'm mistaken.
I do not see anything myself. I think we are looking at the computer, and the computer is happy if they just exchange tiles again, which is sometimes hard to do twice in a game. You don't want to keep sacrificing your move, but sometimes, when you have BPV on your rack, you do what you got to do.
Another option for them that the computer is suggesting is they could play bind off of DOH. And we saw them do this yesterday where they kind of create a diversion for the spot that they want. Really thinking so many steps ahead here, very creative. If they do something like bind, they're considering avid.
Which I think is a similar idea to bind,
Right,
creating a kind of
creating this diversion. What I like about bind is that it gets rid of an extra tile for them. We've seen a lot of A's played. There are only 2 unseen A's. An A is the only letter that can go in front of a B. So it's a little less risky.
I'm interested to see what they come up with. Avid is not a bad idea as well. Keeping that L. I think they have decided to not take the L hook right now.
Which is a smart move. Wait it out. They need to score some points. They're down by 95 at this point? Or 85? Not insurmountable by any means. One bingo and they could be right caught up. And we're about halfway through the game still.
Exactly. And there's still a few S's left to play. And so once again, that S hook on tint and even the S hook on the phony word querer could come into play.
Right. Or towel.
And then,
now
so
there
the
are
towel is
multiple
even
spots.
bigger.
They might have seen. It looks like they're looking to stack vertically now with OH, or they're considering playing something like blip, getting rid of some of those tiles. I also think that's a valid move.
It's a very reasonable
because it's also a really nice leave. The B and the P, I like both those tiles, but they're kind of tricky together.
Mm-hmm.
All right, very curious. And you know what? This is also the benefit of these teams taking their time. They have 25 minutes to play the whole game. They know when to, go ahead and make a move and when to really take their time to analyze a move.
And it seems like they're pretty comfortable playing both sides of that because we saw Leah and Jonathan yesterday on stream, and they were actually playing quite a bit quicker. And I think their opponents maybe were struggling a bit with time pressure, and so they were very comfortable playing immediately when they had to.
A little time crunched, but now they see Nathaniel Malden, 16 minutes, almost 17 on the clock. Awesome. Avid is a great play strategically. They're creating that diversion.
And most importantly, keeping that L hook, which it seems like Nathaniel and Walden are actually going to be blocking this turn. They've picked up their tiles for the word fogey, which scores very nicely. 34 points, making OOH.
Absolutely. Much better balance on Leah and Jonathan's rack now. But fogey is a beautiful play. On the one hand, you're putting that F in the triple lane. I think we will still see a triple play by Leah and Jonathan. On the other hand, it scores so well that anything they're going to score is kind of negated. Or maybe they're considering just fog, saving the Y for themselves for later, maybe?
Maybe. And the word fogey actually plays in a couple spots on this board. They can play it off of the word avid that Leah and Jonathan just played. And so it looks like the Tile Blazers are electing to play fogey for more points on that side of the board, not blocking the L hook on oil. But that's a very reasonable play. They're scoring a lot more points in the process. 43 points. However, it does let Leah and Jonathan make a play with that L hook that they set up for themselves last turn.
But it might be sensible for Leah and Jonathan, and I see Leah pointing to that Y, to wait even one more turn. They could play something like Brainy.
Right.
Give themselves one more chance. Because frankly, Brainy would score even better than something with the L at this point.
Right.
It looks like their best play is Bairnly, Bairnly. Super weird word for them to know. I also do see the merit in keeping that L.
Right, for the oil hook next turn. And yeah, really, all these weird words, the dictionary does go pretty deep. There's a ton of words in the dictionary that, most people only naturally know a fraction of them because words come from all over the place, and we source our dictionary from multiple dictionaries across the English language. And so, in general, you might be surprised to see some of these words on the board, like reb, even NTH and ion. But really, the dictionary has a ton of words in there that a lot of these kids will start studying as they start their Scrabble careers.
It looks like they're going with Yarn. They're going the other way with it. Not a bad move. They're saving some of their higher scoring tiles so that they can use that triple in another time. But of course, it's going to be blocked right now by very smart move. Nathaniel and Malden playing Ment. We're seeing really smart stacking.
Yeah, it's a huge play. 36 points for Ment.
Oh man, and right when Leah and Jonathan get the K for Oik.
Right. And they it actually blocks a great play that Lee and Jonathan had of Folk, F-O-L-K.
Oh, beautiful.
Which is exactly what they were waiting for with a play like Yarn when they're holding on that L. But unfortunately for them, the Tile Blazers, our defending champions, block that play.
The good news is that they do have a triple lane to use now. They could play something like Flop and stack along that triple. And that could be very helpful. We're also seeing they're at the point where they're going to need some big moves, a bingo at least, to make up some of this point deficit. So get rid of that F, P, B, any of that you can. I'm pretty confident in their finding Flop. And Nathaniel and Walden back with their vowel problems. You know, another benefit of Flop is if somehow they can find a 6-letter word or even a 7-letter word starting with K.
Using
they've
Oik
got
now.
Oik now as another lane that they know can't be taken.
And, you know, at this point, that might be the comeback that they're looking for. You know,
Absolutely.
let's hope we draw something like
Oh, they found Flop.
tipping. And that's a great play. Flop is exactly what
I
they
had
need.
full faith in them. Okay, someone in the chat pointing out Flob is better than Flop. I think that's, you know, not as... that would be a harder word to know and to be confident in playing. So I totally get how Flop happened. Is Flop good? F-L-O-B? I also just don't know that as a word.
I believe that's probably in the international lexicon.
That might be a Collins word. Wow, someone is pointing out that on the in Scrabble history, a very similar rack to what they had last turn, someone had played Panbroil in a school Scrabble tournament.
Really?
What a find.
Beautiful.
Okay, so they're not going to get to bingo with those letters, but they can rack up some points.
Yeah, the X could be useful just to slowly chip away at the lead. And we saw Leah and Jonathan, the last game they played on stream, that was exactly their strategy. They slowly chipped away at their deficit. They were down about 50 points early in the game, slowly scored consistent points all game until they were ahead by 50 points and end up victorious. And it seems like maybe they're taking their time this game as well, hoping for the same outcome.
Absolutely. Although in the last game, they started that process a bit earlier. So they have less time now to make that catch up. But again, pretty solid that they get to now at least score hopefully like 30 points somewhere for that X.
Right.
And Nathaniel and Walden, they've had some luck with not just power tiles, but things like the M or the F and the Y of Fogey, racking up points that way. Now we see them getting these 1-point tiles, less opportunity to score that way.
And yeah, it is really tough to mount a comeback when your opponent is scoring 30, 40 points a turn. And really it just shows how great our defending champions, the Tile Blazers, are. They've been able to find their consistent 30, 40-point plays, and they know that as long as they keep that engine running, that they'll be able to coast to a victory.
You know, it's easy to get stuck in this concept of bingos because they stack up points so quickly, but two 30-point plays in a row, that's the equivalent of a low-scoring bingo.
Exactly.
I saw them put Roue on the rack, R-O-U-E. They definitely know their vowel dumps.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few of those this game.
Yeah.
Roue and Asai.
Now Leah and Jonathan have a tough call because they can't really block that bingo, or not bingo lane, but triple lane.
Right, none of their I's can go before the R.
Right. They could play XI off of Towel and just rack up a few points that way. Looks like their best option actually is to stack Skid there with their S, but I can totally see wanting to hold on to that S at this point.
Yeah, I think especially with that stint hook still available, it's been sitting there all game, and I think if they do see that S hook there, it might be wise to keep the S and hope for a bingo there next turn.
Absolutely. Oh, it looks like maybe Jonathan was considering DOX, which is Not a valid word.
Not a valid 3. There's a few similar words. Dex is a
Right.
word.
I hope they play that XI because I have a feeling otherwise Nathaniel and Walden are going to use that spot for their now power tiles that they've drawn. And they also have an S now.
Right, exactly.
Oh, looks like they're considering Kid. I think that's a great move.
I think Kid's great, and keeping the X for next turn, and most importantly, keeping that potent S tile.
And racking up some much needed points.
We see some great drawing technique by Jonathan there. Jonathan
He's
Kai.
really got it down pat.
Yeah, exactly. He's the tiles behind the head just so there's no chance you see into the bag. And once again, they draw another mittful of consonants. Better consonants this time.
Better consonants.
The Z and the X are both fantastic on their own. A bit clunky together. You like to keep them separately if you can.
I would be very interested to see the statistics on how many, sorry, I got distracted because I'm so excited to see their play on how many consonants versus vowels they've had this game.
Yeah, kind of like the possession stats
Exactly.
in soccer games.
So they're playing Zhao, they're racking up points and also taking off that bingo lane. And it looks like they have emptied the bag. We saw a big bag shaking in the corner. That's tough news for Leah and Jonathan because not only is it pretty unlikely for them to make up those points, but they need to get rid of the Z and the X as quickly as possible. Nathaniel and Walden have pretty great tiles. They can go out certainly in 2 turns, if not 1.
And it looks like it will be a win for our defending champions, the Tile Blazers, Nathaniel and Walden. Where Leah and Jonathan have put up a great fight, though. And they're also only 5th graders. And it's an amazing showing from 5th graders. I didn't even play Scrabble in 5th grade. I didn't know what it was.
I don't know if you can call what I was doing in 5th grade playing Scrabble so much as sitting next to my brother while he played Scrabble. But I also wouldn't write them off yet because they'll only have the 1 loss.
Exactly.
It's not going to be a terribly huge loss, and they could win their next 2 games, and we could see them again at the finals.
Absolutely.
But incredible, as expected, incredible play from Nathaniel and Walden. They had, some vowel-heavy racks. They knew exactly how to handle that. It's not just about knowing what to do with good tiles, but knowing what to do with bad tiles.
Yeah, they showed a lot of poise, finding a lot of great overlapping plays, and also, taking the risk on the word querer ended up working out for them. It seems like they weren't sure if it was a word, and they got a great score for their word of dare.
And I will say 11 Pajama 5, hope I'm saying that right, from the Twitch stream says that Leah and Jonathan have played amazingly with the tiles that they have. I can't agree more. They were kind of dealt a bad lot with so many of those consonant-heavy racks in a row. And I think they've done really well considering it. I wouldn't be surprised if they broke 300 this game. I think their best move at this point is something like Zips. They just need to get rid of tiles. There are no A's left, so they're hopefully not setting up too much stacking-wise with the Z there. Looks like they're looking to get rid of the X, maybe. They're playing XIS. The reason I would pick Zips instead is just because you want to get rid of more tiles at this point.
Right. At this point, there's no point in keeping the stints hook alive.
Right.
And so you can score pretty well with the Z there, but XIS is a solid play. At least getting rid of one of the X and the Z means you won't get stuck with it at the end of the game.
It's going to be interesting to see what Nathaniel and Walden do if they've tracked correctly, which is when you're crossing out tiles as they're played so you can see what's left in the bag. Oh, are we seeing a challenge on ORs maybe?
We may be seeing a challenge on the word ORS.
That would be interesting, not only because it's a good word, but because at this point, I don't know if it's particularly worth it for Nathaniel and Walden to challenge.
It may not be worth it, but also if they really think it's not a word, then...
So true, if you're like, I'm confident.
Yeah, they're not risking the game. They're up by enough points where they can afford to lose a challenge and not be too worried about it.
Absolutely. Although it is true, as someone is saying in the comments here, that spread could be pretty important at this point in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, getting that extra turn, that extra chance to get rid of the Z, pretty helpful for Leah and Jonathan. All right, looks like they're going up for the challenge.
And this will come back acceptable. OR, you might think OR should not take an S, but ORS is in fact a valid word.
Ifs, ands, or buts. Leah's dad in the comments is pointing out there's really just the one spot for the Z, at least that I'm seeing, which is Fez. If Nathaniel and Walden had seen that, they could have blocked the only Z spot and gotten the points on Leah and Jonathan's rack for the Z. I'm sure they know Fez, if not for its fashion merit, just for the fact that they have studied their threes. I think Leah and Jonathan have those threes down pat. So I hope they find it. I'm sure they're going to scour the board. They've only got 2.5 minutes left.
Thank you.
And now Leah's mom says 1,000 lashes with a wet noodle if they don't see Fez. Wow, it's a hardcore training environment that Leah's gone through, but I'm sure she's going to see it. If for no other reason, then there's no other spot.
Right. I mean, then that's your priority right now, is getting rid of that Z. They already handled the X, and it looks like they found Fez. So no lashes with a wet noodle for anyone, thankfully. And they're going to get rid of their Z, and I'm sure they're very happy about that challenge now. It saves them a lot of spread, makes this a much closer game in the end.
Absolutely. Otherwise, they would have been, when we say stuck with the Z, we mean not only that they didn't get to play it, but their opponents get double however many letters are left on their rack. They would get 20 points for that Z, a whole other free play they're giving their opponents. All right, I'm so proud of them for finding it. Looks like Leah's family is proud of her too, as they should be. Awesome, they found Squarer. Beautiful.
That's amazing, and we kind of rode off that hook earlier. It's a pretty tough hook to see. And it's also kind of cool because it makes a word that's not in the dictionary now into a word that is in the dictionary. Square is a totally valid word. It kind of makes the board pure once again. That's a fantastic spot. That's not an easy hook to see.
Absolutely. Now for Leah and Jonathan, they can hopefully keep this spread under 100. It's going to be hard just because final tiles wise, Nathaniel and Malden have a much easier time. They're going to try and get rid of as many tiles as they can. I see them looking at Dorp, D-O-R-P, which is their best move according to Quackle. I don't know if they're confident in that being a word. I hope they are, though.
They may be, the elections played. It looks like they're considering Dorp versus Daub, and Daub is another plausible-looking phony. Not actually in the dictionary.
It's true. I think we might be seeing. Well, we'll see if there's another challenge happening.
But maybe after the challenge of the
two-letter word, maybe they're feeling good about it.
Start to doubt yourself.
It sets up for Nathaniel Malden. If they play something like user off of Daub, then Leah and Jonathan can actually challenge it off.
Right.
Which would be amazing to see Leah and Jonathan actually go out first.
We wouldn't have expected that with
would never have expected that.
B-I-P-R-S-X-Z. But it looks like they're going for use an X.
Right. Excellent.
15 points to go out, or Sue and X. Fantastically played game by both teams. We see a win from our defending champions, the Tile Blazers, Nathaniel Campos from Ridgefield, Connecticut, and Walden Tanner from St. Louis, Missouri. A 7th grader. Nathaniel Campos is a 7th grader, and Walden is an 8th grader. But Lee and Jonathan, both 5th graders, put up a great fight.
This is not the last we're going to see of them by any means. I personally would not want to be battling it out over a board with them myself. But with Nathaniel and Walden, no surprise here. Excellent playing. They won last year. It looks like they're well on their way to get back to the championship game this year. But again, anything can happen. We've got 5 undefeated teams. So at this point, we'll have 2 or 3 still undefeated. They're all going to be duking it out. Awesome. Looks like they are filling out the scorecard. After they're done with all that, we will bring you an interview with Nathaniel and Walden from the wonderful Knits. And we're going to get their insights on this game, maybe what they were thinking with Querer. Did they know it was not a word? They had some beautiful finds this game, both sides. Gelatos and beastie, both not super intuitive words, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, and shaking hands, we love to see the good sportsmanship. I honestly thought the most impressive play, even if it wasn't the most points, was Fogey.
Fogey, yeah. Yeah, that's cool as well because you might be tempted to block that L hook on OI that they set up, but they're like, you know what, we're gonna take our consistent points. Why not score 40 and just make sure that we can deal with anything that comes our way instead of just dealing with the one threat. Yeah, that was a fantastic play.
Absolutely. And had the S's not been out, they could have even played Fog and set
Right,
themselves
set
up.
out the Y.
But again, they knew not to take that risk. Awesome. Well, that was just an incredible way to start the day because we saw such strong play from both sides. We also saw, I've said it and I'll say it again, just how fickle those tile gods can be.
For sure, yeah. We saw some tough draws from Leah and Jonathan. But really, I think they did pretty well with what they had overall. And ultimately, we get to see the Tile Blazers extend their lead to 6-0. I think that probably puts them in first place in the tournament so far with 2 rounds left to play.
They were already in first place going into this. They've now probably just cemented that even further. But they're not the only undefeated team at this point. So competition's not over yet. It's not even over for Leah and Jonathan because they only have the one loss and a pretty solid spread. So we have 2 games to go left before we get to our championship. You can keep up with the standings. We put the link in the Twitch stream for you. Keep up with those standings. We also have our high school division coming up. But in just a moment, we're going to get you that interview with the Tile Blazers, our reigning champions.
Yeah, our split team, we had Walden Geets and Tanner, an 8th grader from St. Louis, Missouri, alongside Nathaniel Campos, a 7th grader from Ridgefield, Connecticut. And yet one of many split teams. Lee and Jonathan were also a split team. Lee is from New Orleans, Louisiana, and Jonathan Kai is from Chappaqua, New York.
Wow.
Both 5th graders started playing pretty recently for Jonathan. He only started playing in 2021. He's already on the national stage.
We could see some really good instincts from him as well. All right, we are about to bring you that interview. Keep watching with us, folks. We've got more coverage for you coming up at the School Scrabble Nationals.
Hi everyone, this is Nitschuk, the day 2 of the North American School Scrabble Championship, and I'm here with the winners of the round that you just saw, Nathaniel and Walden, our dream team, our winners from last year. So Walden, Nathaniel, tell us, what's it been like? What's your year been like? How have you been prepping to get here and have such a dominant performance with a game over 400 points?
Me and Walden have been practicing on Woogles. We play against each other a lot. And then the night before the competition, we played with each other.
Nice. What about you, Walden?
I played Scrabble.
So, okay, you guys say that you play against each other a lot, but how do you have such a synergy with each other? What is this mind jinx that you have going on? How does that even come about? What kind of practice goes into it?
I think we just work well together. There wasn't really a lot of practice.
What about you? What do you think, Walden?
I study words.
And Nathaniel, do you do that too? Do you study a lot for this?
I studied a lot before, but not a lot during the year.
And what's your strategy? Your mindset when you're going into that game, you know you're going to be on stream, you know you want to just keep that winner's position because you're defending champions. What do you think?
Score a lot and then bingo.
Score a lot and bingo. We love that.
Don't lose.
Don't lose. That's also a good one. Now, we saw some fantastic plays from you guys. We saw gelatos coming down almost instantly. Acai, you guys had mint. I mean, these are beautiful, beautiful plays. So who's coming up with these plays? Is it a team effort? Who spotted them?
Some were me, some were him.
It was some were me, some were him, and it was a team effort.
And what about Fogey? Who spotted the position on the bottom right there?
Me.
Yeah, good job, Walden. Okay, there you have it, folks. We have Nathaniel and Walden with us, defending champions of the 2022 North American School Scrabble Championship. They have had a dominating performance, going 6-0. Is that right? And now we're going to head to our next our next matchup, which is going to be yet again the championship division with, as you know, the 4th to 8th graders. Later today, you're going to see the high schoolers also play, and then the 2 rounds of the finals. Thank you so much for your time, Walden and Nathaniel. This has been great. Do you have any parting words for your, loyal viewers?
Thank you, Mom.
Bye.
Okay, goodbye, you guys. There you have it, folks. We have Walden and Nathaniel who are absolutely killing it. I mean, can you imagine being that young and being able to spot gelatos like that? Finding acai or finding that spot for Fogie? Oof, couldn't be me. And that's why I have with me Will Anderson to tell you how to be the best Scrabble player in the world.
I don't know about that. That's a bit of an oversell, but boy, Walden and Nathaniel are looking good. Of course, as we've heard a number of times, they are the defending champions. I think we saw why in that game. Of course, Jonathan and Leah playing really well as well, but man, that was a very crisply played game on both sides. A lot of really exciting, interesting strategic decisions. And I have a feeling that at some point, we do have another game from that division coming up, but I wouldn't be surprised to see either of those 2 teams make it into the finals later this afternoon, Nitz. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, anyone who can find Beastie with a blank that quickly is 100% in the running for the championship. I mean, for them to have done so much practice, for them to have the kind of word knowledge that they do, goes to show how ready they are for this tournament and for the championship.
Completely agree. We've heard that running theme so frequently among the players that have made it into the little winner's corner that we have here, winning games at this incredibly difficult, prestigious event. And if you're winning games here, it almost always is because of that preparation that you've put in beforehand, in addition to all the incredible natural ability that so many of these players have. No substitute for preparation as well. And we just hear the same theme. Yeah, I've been studying words. I've been on Aerolith. I've been playing practice games. All of those things. There's a reason you're hearing those things over and over again in the winner's corner that you've been just so, capably and confidently manning here, Nitz.
Thank you. Well, the kids are nice to me. They don't bully me. It's not high school. So it's okay. I'm old enough that they don't think I'm, Not, well, maybe Twitch is roasting me. I don't know yet. But, we've heard so many proponents on Twitch chat themselves being like, oh, I think studying is better than playing Scrabble. So many of them saying, I think playing Scrabble and practice games is so much better than studying because you just learn words as you play more and more and more. Now, I don't know if I have a strong position on which I stand. I like to have a happy medium of both. I enjoy playing for the game itself. I like those eureka moments when I find a word that I've studied. So I don't know about you, Will. What do you prefer?
We did talk about that yesterday, right? If you study too much, you kind of take more and more of those eureka moments of playing. And of course, what we mean by that is that sudden epiphany that there's that word that you know, but you've never seen before, never studied before. Obviously, you would see a word before, but you've never studied it in a Scrabble context. Those moments are what make Scrabble so amazing. So don't want to go too far and eliminate them entirely. But of course, Scrabble has so much strategic depth to it, so much calculation and precision. And the more time that you can spend on that side of the game, as opposed to finding words, the better Scrabble you will play. So it's all about what your goals are. At this level, of course, the players are going to be very focused on maximizing their ability to convert their winning chances, to take every last opportunity. And you really see that at that upper echelon. Walden and Nathaniel so quick at finding those candidate words and playing them.
Yeah, I mean, you could spend, your entire afternoon studying words like acai and making sure, you know the word chide, fogie. But at the end of the day, when you're on the board, when you're under that pressure, it's those practice games that have helped you gain that board vision, because I genuinely think that you could know all of these hooks, like the back of your hand, but seeing them on the board, seeing them under pressure, seeing them when you're on a stream in front of all of these viewers is definitely something else. It's a different mindset to have. So yes, please, everybody study, please be here and be a competitor to Will Anderson. We need to knock him down. But, I think playing Scrabble is just, it's its own fun. It has its own strategic components, and it has its own little, charm to it.
Yeah, without question. A good comment in the chat from Rob saying, disagree that Scrabble is precise. It's the opposite of precise, which is why it's awesome. Usually multiple right answers. Very good counterpoint there. Definitely can see the logic in that. There are so many Scrabble positions that allow for your style, your unique way of playing to express itself. So, hey, great point. Another comment in the chat from Uncommon Nigerian: would the organizers consider changing the challenge rule in the future to a point system as opposed to a turn system? That's a debate that we've had a lot. I myself favor moving towards a less punishing challenge system for younger players. We are dealing with players. I just talked to another player in the high school division who's only been playing for about a year, and he's in that top half, Zach Bitker. Super nice kid. And I feel like his number one thing that he told me was, I'm getting used to challenges. I'm getting used to challenging words and being challenged on my words. And that is a steep learning curve for a lot of these players, especially those who are used to playing online where words are automatically verified. So something we could easily see. I myself am somewhat in favor of it. Nitz, where do you stand on that?
Well, okay. I have played Collins my entire life, the other dictionary, the international dictionary, which means that I have played with the international rules my entire life, which is a 5-point challenge, which is when you lose a challenge, it's, you don't end up losing your entire
if you challenge a word you're not sure of, they just get an extra 5
points
as opposed to you losing your
turn. And losing your turn is so punitive, because if you think about it, on an average turn, you could score anywhere from 20 to 40 points, maybe even more. And with a 5-point challenge, you're only losing those 5 points, which makes some Collins players kind of annoyed. It's especially on the higher, the higher level, because they say 5 points is nothing. You could challenge everything. It's basically free. That said, I do think that for kids, for a level of this Scrabble playing, I think that double challenge, which is where you lose your turn, is a little too punitive. I would prefer a points loss system. I don't manage this. I don't control the rules, but I definitely do think it would be a lot more welcoming to newer players. For example, Leah and Jonathan. Jonathan's been playing only since 2021. He's a fantastic player. He's killing it. He's really good with those challenges. He knows what he's doing. But that said, if I was someone who had just started playing only a year in, I would think that the double challenge is a little too prohibitive, and I would be scared to enter a tournament where I know that my performance depends on so much more than just my word knowledge, but also, my opponent's body language and what signals I'm getting.
Yeah, all excellent points. Some comments in the chat, maybe 10-point challenge. Is that compromise? Who knows? Something we could see in a future year. The one counterpoint, of course, from a player perspective, that challenge rule easing up would be very nice, very welcoming to the players. I will say, though, from a spectator standpoint, the double challenge does lead to some incredible dramatics at times. So, you give and take depending on your point of view. Maybe no one right answer to the question, but definitely something that I could see. I've spoken about it with our sort of organizer, Stefan Fatsis, before. I think he's amenable to it. So stay tuned for what we do in future years on that. Just a quick update. I'm looking into the playing room. People are bustling around. It looks like the next round pairing is being debated upon and decided. That next game is going to once again come from the championship division between teams of two, as we just saw in the previous round. And then we're going to close it out in round 8 with another game from high school. Right after that, we'll take a quick break for lunch. Won't be very long until we dive right into our finals from there. Oh my God, Nitz, I'm so excited for them.
Me too. I mean, it's going to be an action-packed day. We've already seen such a fantastic game come at us with Lee and Jonathan and Walden and Nathaniel. I'm sure that the next tournament, the next matchup is going to be just as exciting, if not more. We can look forward to, even more close games, even more of these kids just finding impossible words and impossible positions. I mean, to go from finding Fogey on the bottom left side of the board to being like, oh, actually, my opponent's move just gave me an even better and more higher scoring spot, to finding Acai and making Chai, to finding Beastie. These are moves that are, something that we would see expert level upper echelon Scrabble players make. And that's just, the charm of this game and coming to these tournaments and looking at this. So thank you so much for all of you, our loyal viewers who were here yesterday, who are here again today, because we're going to give you all of this action and more. So much more coming at you today.
Yeah, just want to shout out, of course, we got a raid early on in that game. I think the name, That Homie Mike. Thank you, Mike, for your raid. I'm not sure if any of those raiders are still here. Really appreciate that early on in the broadcast, getting some real just positive vibes from that community. Appreciate you guys very much. And of course, as Nit said, appreciate all the Scrabble veterans as well. All of you guys that are tuned into as many Scrabble broadcasts as you can. Really, huge thanks to you all. I expect that the numbers are going to rise quite a bit throughout the day as we head into our finals. So I think what we'll do now, I can feel the organizing team right there, figuring out what next round's pairing will be. Let's just take a quick break, probably no more than a minute or two, as we finalize our next streaming round. Again, Nits, it's coming from the championship division. We had 5 teams, I believe, at undefeated 5-0 records coming into the day, in that we just saw a game between 2 of those teams. We'll see what happened in the other matchups. Nits, I'm really looking forward to next round. Any final thoughts?
Oh, wow. I mean, there's so much to look forward to today. And I have to say, even if we cut to this short little break, Lin Yuzu, I saw your message. Please don't go to sleep. I know it's 6 a.m. But if you're waking up at 6 a.m. for this content, that you want to stay awake for the rest of the day, because it's only going to get better. All right. I think, now is a good time for us to cut to that break and for us to, wait out the next pairing. Thank you so much, you guys, for watching.
And welcome back to our coverage of the North American School Scrabble Championships 2023. We are winding down our last few rounds of the main event here. What are we about to see, Jackson?
We are about to see round 7 of 8 from the championship division. That's players on teams from 3rd grade through to 8th grade. And we're about to see our defending champions, the Tile Blazers, Nathaniel Campos and Walden Gitzen-Tanner, going up against two players we have not seen yet, Theodore Diamond and Toby Lieberman.
No relation.
Right, I'm joined here with Hannah Lieberman, no relation to Toby Lieberman, and I'm Jackson Smiley.
I promise you some unbiased coverage here. We just watched the Tile Blazers last round. They dominated, they played incredibly well, but hey, both these teams are undefeated. Only one of them can emerge undefeated from this game. Unless there's a tie, which would be great Scrabble to watch. Looks like Nathaniel and Malden are going first. We see some professional tile drawing there.
And Toby and Theo are both 5th graders, actually. Both from Connecticut. Theodore's from Stamford, Connecticut, and Toby's from Ridgefield. And both 5th graders. So this might be one of their first North American School Scrabble Championships, and they are 6-0. And it also means they have 3 years ahead of them that they can still play in. So I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of them.
We know there will be some competition for Lindsay and Jonathan moving forward, too.
Exactly.
All right, so pretty good balance on that rack for Nathaniel and Malden. Not necessarily a bingo in there, but when we say a good balance, they have this good mix of vowels and consonants. Ooh, but great letters from Toby and Theo.
They get that early blank tile. They'll probably be looking to bingo. It might be tough. They're close to the word genetic, but don't quite have it.
Right, or enticing. If Nathaniel and Malden play an N, they're going, ooh, hit bone. They're like, maybe we can make a word. If Nathaniel and Walden play an N, they've given a lot of opportunities to Toby and Theo. Exciting, enticing.
Exactly. And looking at their play of Hob, which I think is the perfect play,
Absolutely
keeps
agree.
this really potent EINT leave, which is quite likely to turn into a bingo next turn. So they might be able to use all 7 of their tiles to score 50 extra points. And we'll see if they draw reasonable tiles. I think they might just be able to do that. And our defending champions, Nathaniel and Walden, seem to be studying. They've found some really great words that are, higher probability in the dictionary that are likely to come up. And it seems like they've put their work in there.
Something I love too is that they started with a vertical play, which it's just, it's just as valid, but we just don't see that a lot. It kind of throws me off when my opponent does that.
You're not a verdi, as they say?
No. Do they say? All right. Looks like they are just choosing to get rid of some letters they're going to hope to bingo next time. They're playing ICH. Totally valid play. They're like, let's get rid of that double I. Let's get rid of the C. It leaves them with an amazing leave for a bingo.
And little did they know, it seems like they actually blocked the bingo that Nathaniel and Walden set up on their rack. Another bingo, what I was talking about, shows they've been studying Tay Knight. Great find. And it did play before the play of Ick. And I don't think it plays anymore. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but either way, I'm sure they're happy about that.
No, I think... Ick, it's not like they had many other options to play those 2 letters, but it did benefit them that way. The problem with something like Taynite, if you can use those letters to bingo, great. If you can't, well, they're not the best, highest scoring tiles. They're probably just going to get rid of an E and a T, or maybe an EAT or EIT, and balance that rack out again, because those are, again, really high probability bingo tiles.
Yeah, and Nathaniel is an experienced tournament player himself, playing against adults of all ages. He has an official rating, and he won the lowest division at the North American Scrabble Championship. He cleaned up a record of 25-5, and it just shows he has a lot of experience in the game, and I think he'll know to not blow up this rack up. These are some really potent tiles, and he did draw Taynite this turn, and if he keeps this rack alive, he'll be able to probably draw into something else next turn. So I think we'll see this team, play off their ET somewhere that looks like what they're going for.
That's
right. A very smart play.
Now, someone in the chat mentioned that CHI could have been a better play strategically for Toby and Theo, because it doesn't put the I under that triple letter, and it doesn't set up a double-double. But on the other hand, it actually worked out for them. It would have been a lot worse for them to have played CHI. That's right, a quick, easy bingo. So it kind of worked out. ET, perfect play here. They are just getting rid of those duplicate letters. Of course, also setting up a spot. Oh, and a perfect spot for Toby and Theo to play their bingo. They're seeing, look, we can stack it, get the W on that triple letter square.
Oh, he's 79 points for Toby and Theo, the 5th graders from Connecticut. Fantastic find, and they're taking the early lead. There's definitely a sound of even psychological advantage getting the first bingo in the game.
Absolutely.
It kind of sets the pace for the game. And now Nathaniel and Walden are going to be playing more on the catch-up side for now.
Although Nathaniel and Walden have already found their next bingo, inedita, which is, again, a word. I don't know how often you use that in your everyday life, Jackson, but I would think that is a studying word that they have found.
Not every day that I use that word. And I'm wondering if they might... Oh, no, they actually do. No, they might have the same problem they did last turn, where it actually does not fit on the board. They had a few places to play.
Ideating.
Exactly. So it's a great find. Can't play the 7, find an 8 instead. Fantastic play.
Absolutely, and it also takes off the sting of that bingo that, hey, immediately after you bingo, I'm coming right back. Don't get too comfortable, Toby and Theo.
Exactly. So they actually take the lead with that. They take a 6-point lead. 96 for our defending champions, the Tile Blazers, to 90 for Toby and Theo.
Oh, and Toby and Theo coming back very quickly with Diary. The ideal is to get rid of 2 A's, but I also think that might be the best move just because they're getting rid of, they're getting some points on the board, and they're taking up that triple lane that they have there. I don't think that was a poor choice at all. They made that decision a little quickly, but It was a good decision.
Not bad at all.
Ooh.
Keeping vowels, you can run to racks like this, but it's not always a bad thing. There's actually been an interesting switch in the Scrabble community. In the last couple of years, some new computer software has come out that's actually encouraged people to keep vowels a bit more. And so there's been a bit of a switch going on where people aren't as afraid to keep vowels. Of course, sometimes you run into something like this, you draw a few more, and you're not too happy about it. But I've been finding players are more willing to keep the extra vowel in these close calls.
Absolutely. Now, we see more great letters on Nathaniel and Walden's rack here. They've seen the word solved. I bet they were hoping for an open U or something unsolved to make another 8. But even if they don't, bingo in this turn, they've got a lot of high scoring options here. Looks like they're going
with solved. A ton of points.
Absolutely,
45.
a ton of points. Getting that V on the double letter and then the whole world tripled. That's problem solved, Austin Ho says. That's a big way to rack up those points. This is a real neck and neck game so far. As soon as no player is getting comfortable here. Now they're choosing to play agree, which I understand. You want to get rid of a lot of those vowels. I would rather keep an E and try and get rid of one more A if possible somewhere.
I think so, yeah. And I think this may have been a case where they wanted to take an extra minute just to keep looking for a couple other vowel dumps. They had a few other words available, like Gallia through the L. That might have been good.
Right.
Keeping AIA is still not something you're psyched about. So I might have taken the extra minute there, There's a lot of options on this board. It's a really open board. There's tons of places to play.
They're certainly not short on time.
Exactly,
They've got plenty of time to think it through.
Yeah, both very fast teams. Toby Lieberman has been playing since 2019, along with Theo, who's also been playing for a few years. Even though they're both in 5th grade, they got a really early start.
Right. Well, we saw a really smart play from Nathaniel Walden, a word that was played against them in the last game. They played NTH to get the H hooked on the triple letter going both ways. You might be focused on these bingos, but it's like we've been saying, these small words can add up. They're getting 30, 40 points a play. That's the equivalent of bingoing every other turn.
1, 2, 6, 12.
Wow.
22, 23.
Very few missteps according to Quackle, which is the software we use to predict, what would actually be the best play here.
153.
Some more quick play from Toby and Theo. But again, I don't think it was a bad move playing Oath. Getting some points themselves.
Keeps the Q, which no one loves to see, but you only have a couple constants to work with. You have to do something. You have to keep something you don't want. And they did draw a U, which is what you're hoping for when you keep the Q.
I saw Toby and Theo almost put QUAI and then hesitate, but that would be... Oh, it's blocked anyways by Plonk.
Plonk. And that shows some serious 5-letter word study. It's one of these words that you kind of know what it means when you hear it, but you wouldn't know that's actually in the dictionary.
Absolutely.
But it is a valid word.
A valid word, and also a super smart play because it gets rid of some of those consonants that they're stuck with without setting too much up. Looks like they're going for qua, which I think is smart. They're stacking those letters. That's a very smart play.
We've seen this strategy from quite a few teams where you kind of stack the letters vertically on the board before committing to the play, just so your opponent can't see what letters you're actually considering playing, in case you want to change your mind.
That's right. The Quackle software is telling us that the best play would have been QUININ.
Quinin, a very
but that's
obscure
such
word,
an obscure
quinin.
word. I think given probably the word knowledge they're working with, qua was an excellent play.
Exactly. And yeah, really the sky's the limit with word study. A lot of these teams have really put a ton of work into learning, especially the shorter words and some of the higher probability 7 and 8 letter words. But this dictionary can really feel endless for a lot of players. You can put tons of years into memorizing the dictionary, learning every word, so that you can always find, a word like quinin that comes up in any case.
Absolutely. Both teams still have pretty great distribution on their racks right now. We see an S on Toby and Theo's rack. That's going to be very helpful. And we're also seeing a neck and neck game.
Exactly.
No one is pulling away with this game yet. 13-point difference, that's basically nothing, especially this early in the game.
And the board is wide open. There's tons of places for bingos to play. There's some scoring spots. And so the teams really have a lot of options for where they can play. They'll really have to take their time to
Absolutely.
look all over the board. And you can see that Nathaniel is
Yep.
pointing all around. And they found the word Bruin, which is fantastic.
Wow,
A
this
very good
game's gonna-
scoring spot.
Game is going to end in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
These are fast players here. Fast players, and yet they have been making, according to Quaggle, the best they can be making, the best game plays they can be making.
You know, when you know,
So
you know.
far.
They see the best play.
No.
Looks like they're looking to play Mew, M-E-W. Not a bad choice here. They could also try and reach that triple down at the bottom with something like Twines.
Twines. It'd be great to get rid of one of those eyes.
Rack up some points too, but you know what? Mew's not a bad option. Now they're saying, hey, should we take that triple up at the top, not leave that open for our opponents? But I feel like that triple at the top is only a problem, wow, if their opponents have a power tile. Wow, and once again, Bruin was the best play. They keep making these best plays. Now they're choosing to do Swine. Totally get the instinct, take that triple. On the other hand, they're putting an S right in a lane for a bingo.
And it looks like it's exactly what the doctor ordered for Nathaniel and Walden. They had found their bingo tapiocas, and it goes right to that S. You know, from their perspective, that's like magic. It's like a gift from
Stars
God.
aligned.
And that's a huge turning point in this game. I'm sure Toby and Theo are not thrilled that they changed their mind. Because I don't know if Tapioca was even going down on the board before that switch.
It's also just a beautiful find.
Amazing.
I mean, that is not an instinctual bingo, right?
Exactly. Especially if you haven't studied it, if you haven't memorized the word, how to find it. It's amazing anagramming.
I don't look at those letters and think, oh, I'm going to bingo with these letters.
No.
But we do see another power tile with Toby and Theo. Absolutely not out of this game yet. They have a Z. They can hopefully stack that C somewhere for some points. They could also, they could play Vermin off of the triple down here. I think we're seeing, I mean, Wiz is great, 35, totally get that. I think sometimes we can be so excited to have a power tile that we kind of lose sight of, hey, there are other options.
Yeah. They may be trying to go for a bingo, in fact. We asked the players before the game, and Theo Diamond said his favorite thing about Scrabble is bingos. And so he may be trying to get towards some of that. He also said that when he grows up, he wants to be a baseball player, but also better at Scrabble. And I'm sure that
I think
that he will do.
all baseball players could afford to be a little better at Scrabble. That's my hot sports take for you.
Whereas his partner, Toby Lieberman, he said his favorite word is sesquipedalian. You know what that means?
Gesundheit. No, I don't know what that means.
Toby Lieberman also loves music aside from Scrabble. He plays a ton of instruments: bass, piano, guitar, sax.
Whoa.
I think he stopped listening at that point.
Well, he's got quite the skill set here.
Multi-talented
Really,
team from Toby
really
and Theo.
smart move from Nathaniel and Malden, too. They played here on the triple, finally taking advantage of that triple lane. You know, the urge can be, let me hold on to that S, see if I can bingo, but S's aren't super valuable for bingos on this board. And at this point, they have such a lead, they just need to maintain that lead.
Exactly, and we've seen that twice now. The two six-letter words from our reigning champs, the Tile Blazers, they played solved and then now forms, both for these 40-point plays, which I think are amazing decisions. Yeah, breaking up the rack is totally fine when you can score 40 points in the process.
And once again, they found actually the best play. According to Quackle, they've had basically no missteps this game. Let's see. Someone was recommending that they play Jam this term. I'm not sure where they're trying to play Jam. But I totally get the urge, wait and hope for an O so that you can take advantage of what your opponent just played on the bottom, knowing that you have that J. Get that JO going both ways.
Yeah, exactly. And they would have next turn the word JEU, if I'm not mistaken. That fits right above forms. Kind of an odd word.
That's beautiful.
French.
Although I wouldn't put it past these kids for knowing their threes. They even have an X now, too.
Right. But actually, Toby and Theo had played instantly, as they are wont to do this game.
It's true.
Both players have tons of time left. Sometimes, you go back and forth. You can get caught in the crossfire, and you just keep making rapid plays when you're confident they're right.
Absolutely. Looks like they're going for possibly XU with ticks. They can also stack their X up in swine.
No, the other one is 34.
They have almost 20 minutes left in their on their
They started
game.
with 25
There are only
minutes.
17 unseen tiles, 10 tiles in the bag.
Definitely our fastest game of the tournament.
And once again, Nathaniel and Walden playing Oi. That was, again, the best move they could have played. They are, at the computer level at this point.
And Toby and Theo putting on a great showing, especially for being fifth graders, only having started the game a few years ago. I don't know if this is their first North American School Scrabble Championship, but it certainly won't be their last. They have a few years left to play. This division, the championship division, goes up to 8th grade. After that, players can play alone on just by themselves in the high school division up until 12th grade.
I see the urge. They looked at, is June a word? It's Jane. That's good, Gane. But they can play Jeer off of Wedding, and it does look like they found it. I have to say they're very much holding up their own using these power tiles, even after Tapioca's.
Yeah,
Don't
it's
give
not
up,
over
kids.
yet for Toby and Theo.
They could also play Jun, hooking it under Tapioca's and Ma. It's another option. They have a few options to get some points for their J here.
But it looks like it's back to the Tile Blazers. It's their turn, and they're looking at playing Lid, I think, which would play underneath MA off of Tapioca's. Hooking the I onto AM to make ME. Fantastic parallel play, making all these three-letter words. We really see that this is the bread and butter of Scrabble. Knowing your 2s and your 3s, all your in-between plays are going to be so much easier when you know all these words. And I think both these teams have really put in the work to master those word lists.
Absolutely.
So 409.
Also helps with the decision making here. Oh, they're considering Rev.
Interesting play.
I get it. They want to get rid of that V. They're like, we're going to need a bingo.
And there's still an S remaining. Little do they know it is on Nathaniel and Walden's rack, along with the last blank.
They've once again just beautifully set up their opponents.
Right. Yeah, it happened first with Tapioca's, and now again with Rev.
I think the good news for them in terms of not, staying up at night with regret is I'm pretty sure they could have found another bingo. It would have been a lot harder. Somehow aligning vertically with Wedding. Not sure what it is yet, but and if their opponents had played Jeer, they also easily could have bingoed off of that. So
it's tough. And sometimes, they're doing what you have to do. I think Toby and Theo were probably trying to open the board a bit. They know they're down. They know they need to make something happen to win. The only thing is when you don't make something happen to win, you get something like this happening, where your opponent plays a bingo and kind of seals the deal. I think that puts Nathaniel and Walden in a really good position to extend their winning streak to 7-0.
absolutely. Noah is saying in the chat that Nathaniel and Walden seem unstoppable. I think it can be hard. It would be hard not to be intimidated by them if you're playing them next.
An easy 71 points for the word loners, making the blank an A, and I think they empty the bag with that.
Wow.
And still, both teams playing incredibly quickly. The Tile Blazers have only used half of their clock, and Toby and Theo have used only not even 7 minutes right now.
And Loners was, again, the best play there. Very curious to see what they do. They need to get some points for this J, but again, breaking 300, for a lot of your kitchen table players, that's the rare game for them. There we go.
And they'll like to play Joe and Wee. Yeah, putting up a great showing from Toby and Theo.
And they're just in 5th grade. This is definitely, they're on the up and up. We're gonna be seeing them again.
And I think Nathaniel and Walden will have a couple outplays with EGR. I wonder if they can hit 500. 500 is a score any player would be proud to get. It's not every day you can score that high.
Absolutely. They have spotted Ogre. We've seen that. Now they're looking at Erg hooking
perhaps,
it. That's a
Wee.
little bit better.
I think that would bring them to 500 on the dot, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes, it would.
which is quite a feat for this team.
Wow. we're seeing just an incredible level of play. Nathaniel Walden played a virtually perfect game.
Exactly. And it looks like we're going to do a kind of courtesy challenge from Toby and Theo for the last play. It's a free challenge. You can't lose your turn because there's no turns left to play. They just want to confirm that Erg and we are, in fact, in the dictionary, which they are. And that will extend Nathaniel Walden's lead to 7-0.
With an amazing spread.
Amazing spread as well. And this is another split team we were mentioning. Nathaniel Campos is a 7th grader from Ridgefield, Connecticut, and he's joined by Walden Gietzentanner from St. Louis, Missouri, an 8th grader. And so I don't know how they've practiced. I don't know how they've gotten this good to play a almost perfect game in using half of their clock, but they've certainly figured something out.
Whatever they're doing, it is for sure working. I'm thinking we're probably going to be seeing them again in the championship round, maybe taking on some consecutive titles here. I don't know how often that's happened in school Scrabble history that we've seen consecutive wins.
It's rare. It's happened before, but it's quite rare. If you're lucky enough to get one, usually you're satisfied and maybe.
But Toby and Theo,
gas.
They played an amazing game. I think if we see a little bit of maturing and a little bit of patience, taking a little bit more time to find the better moves, they ended with almost 18 minutes on their clock.
Exactly.
Now, speed Scrabble wise, they're winning that tournament.
Exactly.
But they have 3 more years each in this championship division to make some strides, and they played an amazing game. So I'm excited to see where they go as well.
Exactly. And I think you're right. I think slowing down might have been good in this position. It's tempting to always play as fast as you can, especially when your opponent is low on time. But in this case, Nathaniel and Walden were not low on time, so it may have been good if they had taken a few extra minutes to find some of those, better vowel dumps and just be a bit more precise.
Absolutely. Although only 3 or 4 moves that Nathaniel and Walden did that were less than the perfect move. So
no, that was a fantastically played game. Especially Tapioca's. I'm very impressed by that find because it didn't seem like an obvious find either. I think it took them a couple minutes of 30 seconds of searching in order to find it, which I think shows some great patience.
Oh, they are exactly, but also shows, man, that speed. They are quick on the uptake here. Toby and Theo also wouldn't write them off, as someone is pointing out in the chat, for making it to the finals themselves. They still have a 6-1 record with a great spread. If we had 3 undefeated teams going into this round, we could potentially still have an undefeated team, potentially have 3 or 4 teams at 6-1.
If they win their last game, that could easily vault them into the finals. There's only 1 game remaining in the main round before we break for the finals.
So I'm pretty confident we're going to see Nathaniel and Walden in the finals, especially given their spread. Even if they lose their next game, it's going to be hard for someone to catch up to that impressive spread they've got going.
So it's looking like a race for who is going to challenge the Trailblazers as they try to defend their title from last year.
I also wouldn't be surprised if Toby and Theo ended up playing who we saw last game, Leah and Jonathan, or they could play the other team that was undefeated and is potentially still undefeated.
Exactly. There's 1 game to play, but still lots can happen. When it's really tight at the top, we have 41 teams in total, and only 2 can make the finals, and I think a lot of teams are in the running right now, depending on who wins this current game and who wins the final game next round.
Absolutely. So excited to see. In just a moment, we're going to bring you Nathaniel and Walden back for another interview. They can tell us how they felt on this game. We found out last time that they definitely do spend their time studying, and it's definitely paying off.
And we definitely saw it. They really like to show the stream that they found the words like Tainite and Inedita. Even when the words themselves didn't play, they showed pretty quickly that they knew they were there.
Absolutely. We've seen, not just in this game, but in the last game too, a lot of these 4-vowel bingos. Clearly that is a subject they've been studying. I don't know if they've maybe just studied everything, but I think we saw that with like uranide or whatever the...
Right, that too. That one
I don't
too
even know these
uranide.
words.
And yeah, that's a big list. I think a lot of kids I know study the 5-vowel 8s. That's another really useful word list because it's one of these racks where you can turn nothing into gold.
Right.
And I guess tapioca was one of the 4-vowel 7s you're talking about.
Exactly. I don't know that he's necessarily studied tapioca. I don't know that that makes it onto the common bingos list, but it is an incredible find.
Yeah, it seemed like an organic find to me for sure.
But what's also amazing about it is that, obviously they played so well, the Tile Blazers, but they also had these great opportunities where just when they find the bingo, a spot was opened.
And I'm not shocked because Walden actually told us before the tournament his favorite thing with Scrabble is not bingos, but just finding the best play, which I'm not surprised at because they did that a lot this game, and almost all their moves they found the absolute best play that they could have made.
Sounds like he's just spending the day doing some of his favorite things. I should try that. I should try making my favorite things being amazing at Scrabble.
Yeah, I never thought of that
Seems to be working out. All right, we are going to head over to Nitz with another post-game interview for you. Thank you for joining us. This is the North American School Scrabble Championship 2023.
Hi everyone, I'm Nitz Shakti and we're back in the winner's corner with none other than Walden and Nathaniel, the winners of round 7 of the North American School Scrabble Championship. You guys just saw one of the best games that we have seen at this tournament so far. A near perfect game played by Walden and Nathaniel. That was ridiculous and that was amazing, winning with 500 points on the dot. Okay, Walden, Nathaniel, how are you guys feeling? What do you guys feel about the tournament going forward? How were you feeling when you came in?
I was feeling nervous, but I'm starting to feel a little better.
Yeah.
Me too.
Okay. Walden, what about you? What are your hopes for this tournament? And what about next year?
I hope I win.
And next year, are you going to be back here?
I don't know, maybe.
All right. And what do you guys like best about being partners? What do you guys enjoy, about this partnership and being, on the same team as each other?
Well, Walden knows a lot of words, so it's very helpful.
I don't know.
Okay, well, I mean, one of you guys found tapiocas, and that was a ridiculous find. So do you think that was teamwork? Which of you guys pointed it out?
I found it out first, but I'm sure Walden would have found it out.
Good job, Nathaniel. I mean, that is a fantastically difficult find. And what do you guys hope for, your Scrabble careers going forward? Do you guys want to be professional Scrabble players going into the multi-day tournaments?
Not really.
Not really. Okay.
I don't know.
Well, what about, just even more tournaments like these, going into the high school division? What would you like to do?
I'd like to keep on playing.
I don't know.
Okay, that's fair. So you guys have shown us an incredible amount of word knowledge and an incredible amount of strategy, board vision. How are you learning these words? What is your regiment like, and how can people be more like you?
I don't study much.
Well, Nathaniel says you know a lot of words, so how is that happening, sir?
I just I play games and then learn the words
And where do you play games?
on woogles.io.
Nice. What about you, Nathaniel? How are you doing your word study? What's your regiment look like?
I write down words I don't know from games I play on Woogles.
That's a really good idea. I know a lot of people here use Aerolith, Woggle, Scrabble Go. I mean, what about you, Chet? What are you doing? And how are you going to learn from these winners over here? Because I'm sure we're going to see you guys many more times. How are you guys feeling? You guys ready for your next tournament, the next match?
Yeah, we're ready.
Maybe.
Okay, well, I'm going to let you guys go. And thank you so much for your time. Thanks for talking to your amazing, loyal fans. And it was really great chatting with you guys. Instead, now I'm going to have a very special guest, none other than, well, you guys might have already guessed it. It's Will Anderson. Who else could it be?
Yeah, that was hard to top that. These kids are pretty focused, huh? They are in full focus mode heading into their 8th round here. I feel like mathematically it's going to be very difficult for Nathaniel and Walden not to make the finals. But yeah, that was an incredibly impressive performance. Maybe fair to say that they let their Scrabble do the talking for them. Yeah, pretty good stuff there. That was an incredibly impressive game, Nitz.
I know, and it was almost like, as the viewers were saying, a blitz game with Theo and Toby taking up less than 7 minutes of their time, perhaps. They had 18 minutes left. That was what? I mean, I remember being a youth player and taking up not a lot of time, maybe having 10, 12 minutes left on my clock. That's definitely not me anymore. But to have 18 minutes left, I can't imagine it. That was, wow, what a speedy game. And at such an optimal level, too.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about it. In that particular game, Nathaniel and Walden played at such a good pace. They used so little time. It's also important to remember that Toby and Theo were playing lightning fast themselves, even faster. And Nathaniel and Walden were just totally unaffected and played maybe the crispest, most accurate game that we've seen so far, and one of the best games that we've seen in my time covering the School Scrabble Championship. Just so impressive. I can't really underscore it enough that they are playing at a crazy high level for people that are not yet in high school. So, that's amazing. And speaking of high school, the standings are, the plot is thickening in that division as well. We are going to be cutting back to that division in round 8. But man, I'm still kind of on a high watching that last game that we just saw.
I know. I mean, with this Walden and Nathaniel dream team giving us 7-0 on their side, we can only hope to have something equivalent with the high school division. We have at the standings right now, Ruth Lee with a 6-0 record. Who knows what's going to happen by the end of her game, and who knows who we're going to see on the stream right now. But I know for a fact that it's going to be a fantastic game. I mean, if Nathaniel and Walden here are already ready to beat high schoolers, who knows what the high schoolers are ready to do to the likes of Will Anderson and other world champions.
Yeah, I'm kind of seeing, my future here. My future is to be losing to these kids consistently over the board. I'm okay with that. That's if that's my future, then I'm just going to put a smile on and have some fun with it. My scouting report on the high school division is that I saw Ruth Lee playing Emmett Brasowski, absolutely locked in an incredibly focused battle. I didn't get a shot at or a look at the scoreboard, but the two of them were incredibly focused down the stretch of their game. And James Donnelly also matched up, I believe, against Zach Bitker, who is something of a newcomer to Scrabble. He was telling me he's been playing less than a year, already getting matched up against a defending finalist late in the tournament. So really, I do think it's going to come down to a small mix of people. If Ruth wins again, she is essentially guaranteed a spot in the finals, unless things break just right with other players like Emmett Brasowski and James Donnelly, who are at 5-1 right now. So some combination of those players, all of whom we have seen. Actually, I don't think we've seen Emmett on stream yet. So maybe that'll be a matchup to watch, especially if he's able to defeat the previously undefeated Ruth Lee in this current round. So, wow, a lot to take in there, Nitz.
Yeah, and these kids have been really, grinding. They've been putting in the effort. They've been putting in the time. We know from Bitker himself that one of the reasons why he's gotten so good is because he's been watching this one's Better Know a Letter videos. Yeah, shout out to Will Anderson, who puts up educational videos for Scrabble enthusiasts and newbies who just want to get better at the game. That's what this whole thing is about. That's what this tournament is about. It's about raising awareness about how amazing a game Scrabble is and how easy it is to become a part of it. And that's it, folks. That's the charm. That's the charm of the game.
Thanks, Nitz. Yeah, Zach did tell me that he's watched the entire series that I put out there about each Scrabble letter. He said that it changed his mind about some of the letters. And he said in particular the letter C, which you also said, Nitz. So he said now that he's been using the C as a blocking tile a bunch of times in this tournament. And I got to admit, that gives me a little bit of a palpitation in the old heart to think that that's happening, that young players are learning a little bit of Scrabble tips here and there from me. Makes me feel pretty good. But either way, these kids are learning. You heard it a bunch of times. We keep hearing over and over. Woogles, Aerolith, a bunch of other tools of that nature. It's not a surprise or an accident that you keep hearing the kids that are in this area saying all of those same tools to improve at the game, as I said last round as well. So yeah, it's really cool to see. And, you know, just to be quite frank, the level of play that we're seeing has continued to rise over time at the School Scrabble Championship. Definitely a game like what we just saw would have been hard to believe a decade ago. It really has made incredible progress since that time, and I'm just incredibly gratified to see it.
Yeah, I mean, we watched James Donnelly absolutely kill it his very first game on this stream, winning with a spread of 534. We saw Ruth Lee making the ridiculously amazing choices on stream. We saw Nathaniel and Walden just now, and these kids, they're really showing you what they've got. And you know, the more you study, the more you play, the more you practice, the more you learn. You get this intuitive sense of what letters are better than others. I mean, everyone knows that an S is good. Everyone knows that a blank is good. But the more you realize, hey, actually, I should be exchanging that J. And hey, I actually should be getting rid of, you know, all these clunky little tiles that I don't want hanging around. And maybe I should be holding on to that C, like you said, either as a blocking tile or as a bingo tile. And yeah, you can get Will Anderson to tell you that through his statistics and his fantastic videos. Go watch them. Or, you know, you could just keep playing and playing as these kids are doing. They're telling us at every interview, they are practicing, they are learning, they're diligent, they're writing things down. It doesn't matter if it's Ziziva, Cardbox, Quackle, Aerolith, Woogles, whatever. They are playing. And this game means something to them. And that's what, you know, really brings us all here together.
Yeah, no question. I've heard it said before, and it's a quote that's really stuck with me, that Scrabble is just a game, as they say, but it is a game that means a lot to a lot of people, including pretty much everybody in this room. I know it means a lot to a lot of you guys watching in the chat, and to anybody that's coming in that's a little bit newer to the Scrabble community, that's absolutely, you know, saying stuff like, wow, I didn't even know this existed. Wow, crazy that they're turning Scrabble into an esport. You know, all of those amazed reactions by the words you're seeing, the play level that you're seeing. First of all, welcome. We appreciate you being here. But secondly, you know, consider coming down this rabbit hole of Scrabble with us. You won't regret it. It's an amazing game, an amazing community. I've been playing it for well over a decade. And certainly if you go back to before I was a tournament player, pretty much my whole life, with that little interlude between ages 10 and 15 when my mom was beating me too much and I didn't want to play. Apart from that, my whole life. And it's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. So anyway, welcome. Thank you all for watching. Really appreciate you for being here. Nitz, you've told a couple of times now sort of your origin story, getting deeper into the game, you know, taking that hiatus and coming back into and we are very grateful for it here in the Scrabble world. But it's an amazing community, one that I'm really, really happy to be a part of. So.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, as Will mentioned, I took a little hiatus. I started playing Scrabble when I was 10 years old. But the time I was 17, I realized, I really probably should be focusing on my assignments for college right now. You know, I kind of want to get good grades. And there are people here who are amazingly, you know, able to juggle extracurriculars in school and, you know, all their assignments in Scrabble. That person was not me. So I did take a very long hiatus, 7 years, I think. But one day I was watching a stream of the Westba Youth Cup, and it was being streamed by none other than Will Anderson. This is smack in the middle of the pandemic.
Can't get rid of me.
Can't get rid of Will Anderson, really. And here's the thing, right? During the pandemic, the Scrabble community really boomed online. This was a time when Twitch really saw Scrabble coming up and out. And I realized, wow, I missed this game. And it does mean a lot to me. And since 2022, I've been going to tournaments and I can't stop. I can't stop playing. I can't stop being a part of this community. I've made friends here. I've, had so many incredible opportunities here. And now I get to be in front of you guys and I get to commentate and interview these wonderful kids who are just up and coming, so smart, so diligent, and so, quick on the uptake, and playing lightning fast too the whole time. And if that's not scary, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
But that said, Scrabble just, once you're in, you're in. It doesn't really leave your life. The words are the game, in the immortal words of Stefan Fatsis.
Very nice. Yeah, very well said, Nitz, in so many ways. Couldn't have said it better. Nice comment there from Weibin. Is this tournament for 3rd to 8th graders? Yeah, I think the cutoff is 4th grade. I believe those are the lowest age, but I know that in the past there have been like special dispensations for 3rd graders with exceptional ability. You can get some kind of a waiver to compete if you're younger. So there is that cutoff at the 8th grade level where you age out of the championship division and move up to high school. So for example, we had our finalists last year, Gideon Brasowski, his brother Emmett at the top of the standings in the high school division, but Gideon has won our online stand-in Scrabble championship, the school championship during the pandemic year, was a finalist last year, and is hanging in there in that top end of things in his first year as a high schooler. So beyond that age cutoff, I do think in the past there have been some 3rd graders, but typically you see 4th through 8th in one division playing as pairs, 9th through 12th in the high school. So yeah, hope that clarifies things. So I know that the pairings going into this last round are especially critical. We need to make sure that everybody that has a chance to potentially qualify for a spot in the finals is given that opportunity. So I know that our directors and our organizers are taking a look at those standings and making sure that everybody with a realistic chance is given that opportunity to make their way into the finals. But certainly it looks like Nathaniel and Walden are in the driver's seat, if not already more or less clinched as the first finalist in their quest to repeat as champions. And Ruth Lead, if she won her game against Emmett right now, she will be in a very similar position in high school. I can't wait to see those last round matchups.
Oh, me too. And I wonder, what it feels like for these championship players when they do move on to that high school division, when they've been playing as partners for so long, and they know that they can trust their other team member to, help them with the tracking, help them with the scoring, help them with the board vision, how it feels for them to be in that high school division and knowing that this is a game with stakes. And this is a game where you have to be on your own. You have to be on top of the game. You have to be able to do what you can. And I think that's where, that practice really comes in. That's where that tenacity really comes in. Because I can't imagine how people like Gideon, for example, who moved on from, being a finalist in the championship division to moving to the high school division now. And, having to confront this entirely new milieu of people. I remember when I was a youth player, I went from state championships to national championships. And for the very first time, I was playing against adults. I was so young. And it looked like a sea of just fear and anxiety. Like, I mean, I couldn't go up against, an adult and be like, hey, hello, let me win this game, please. It was just different. It was just a completely new experience. I'm glad that I did it. And, I'd be happy to hear how these championship players going into the high school division are faring with it, because it's got to be quite a swing.
Yeah, I love that phrase, a sea of fear, that Nitz just said. And frankly, as you were just describing that experience, I thought to myself that when I was in 9th grade, I was terrified of the 12th graders at my school. Not that any of them ever, did anything or picked on me or anything, but they're like so different, right? A 12th grader compared to a 9th grader at that age is a huge gap in sort of your development as a person and just maturity level. When I was in 9th grade, I would have been terrified to sit across the board from a 12th grader and play Scrabble against them. But we see routinely and we were talking about it yesterday, Scrabble bringing people together from all different age groups, walks of life, areas of the globe. And it really is no different. You can see in Scrabble, honestly, you could see a 4th grader sitting across the board from a 12th grader. And it's not that surprising. Scrabble does bring people together from very different backgrounds and all of that sort of thing. It's beautiful to see. So not really surprised that Gideon is holding his own, our finalist last year in the championship division. I think he has 2 losses, so we're not going to see him in the finals just because with such a short tournament, only 8 rounds, every loss is really damaging to your chance of making the finals. But there's definitely a lot of players who are still in the mix in both divisions to make it into that coveted 1-game final. And again, we're going to be covering both of those finals in both divisions, one after the other. You're going to get to watch both. But first, we have a little bit of unfinished business in round 8.
Yeah, and don't go anywhere because after round 8, we have some interesting interviews coming for you guys so you know what's going on behind the scenes with the brains of the operations. We will have Stefan Fatsis here, for example, talking to us about what it's like to run this tournament again and again and again. Because, he's been coaching his own kids. He's been, making sure that these clubs are running. He's making sure that this entire thing comes together. And we really owe it to people like Stefan Fatsis, to locations like Planet Word that give us the chance to do this. Scopely, Scrabble Go, all of this really comes together to allow that community to have the chance to even play against each other, to have the chance of networking, of making friends, of, having a place to come to, something that is central and something that brings everyone together.
Yep, excellent points, Nitz. Also seeing in the chat another former champion here, Noah Slackoff, saying, I started in 5th grade, which is actually, there are players that started much earlier than that. So Noah is truly a precocious talent of Scrabble. So no surprise that Noah, even starting a little bit later than some of the players you see here that are in 4th and 3rd grade, has risen to an incredible height. So thanks, Noah, for being here. But yeah, we will, as Nitz said, we're going to talk to Stefan later. We'll see if we can bring you some more notable people behind the scenes that have made the event happen during that lunch break while we wait for the finals to take place. It shouldn't be too long. So round 8, it looks like the pairings are getting finalized. So I think what we're going to do is take a quick break right now, verify our streaming matchup from the high school division in round 8. We'll be right back with live coverage of the final round of the main event before our championship players are crowned in the 2 finals matchup this afternoon in just a few minutes.
Hello and welcome back to our coverage of the North American School Scrabble Championship 2023. I'm Hannah Lieberman.
I'm Chloe Fatsis.
And we are about to bring you the final round of the tournament before we get into our championship matches. So Chloe, what are we about to watch?
So we are going to watch Emmett Bursowski take on his brother, Gideon Bursowski, in a matchup which could have an influence in determining who gets to play in the final. So basically the situation that we're at right now is we have Ruth Lee in first place. She is 7-0 at the moment, and I believe she is Gibsonized, which means that she is confirmed a spot in the final. There is no way that she could lose and not make the final. Win or lose, she is in. So right now we're trying to determine who is going to be playing Ruth in the high school division finals. And that could be James Donnelly. He is, I believe, the only 6-1 player at the moment. He's taking on Cameron Siegel, who's 5-2, and needs to beat him by 143 points to qualify. Gideon or Emmett also have a chance of making the final if one of them wins by a lot more than that, 143 points, and Cameron wins. So there's a lot going on here. It should be a really exciting game, and we get to watch 2 brothers play on the live stream.
A lot of talk about brothers in the chat. Someone's mentioning there's another Noah Lieberman playing in this tournament. My brother is a Noah Lieberman. I promise he has not forged his birth certificate. He is a solid 29. But I have many tournament experiences of playing a sibling or playing my mom. And yeah, it's brutal. But the nice thing, the better way to look at it, which took me a while to get to, is, hey, even if you lose, the person who won, you're rooting for them too.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm also no stranger to playing family members. My dad, Stefan Fatsis, the organizer of this tournament, is also a competitive player, and we've played many times. It's always interesting because you know that player so well. You're familiar with how they play, their mannerisms. You might even have some tells if you know, like when they get what they do when they draw a blank or when they get a bingo or something. So it's, there's a more casual vibe to it, but at the same time, you also might be feeling even more competitive about it because you really want to beat them.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely like to prove myself to my family. Um, my mom always says, even when I lose, I'm like, but my daughter won. I said, I don't feel the same. I would really like to win, please.
Yeah, and
Alrighty.
so Gideon and Emmett are both from Washington, D.C., where this tournament is being held. Gideon is a freshman in high school. He is in ninth grade, and Emmett is a senior in 12th grade. So this is Emmett's last NSSC, but it is not Gideon's. He has many more opportunities.
Alrighty, so we're seeing this power tile. Actually, what Quackle is telling us, which is the software we use to predict the best plays, it's actually telling us not even to play the J yet and to play pretty obscure word.
Yeah.
Hagbut, Hagbut.
It's a weird one. I would not fault Gideon at all for playing something like Jug here, which is exactly what he's doing. The J is not a good tile, the U is not a good tile, the G is not a good tile. So if you don't see Hagbut, which is, very weird word, yeah, I really like this play of Jug. It also sets up an A hook at the back for Juga, which is
Right.
nice.
Which he's got. So we're seeing vertical opening too, which we talked about last
Yes.
time. One way to go ahead and kick off with your opponent and be like, I don't know. I always find those throw me off a little bit.
Yeah, no, I am partial to opening vertically, and I'm sure Gideon and maybe Emmett as well have picked that up. I know they're active in the Scrabble Twitch community, and I saw Gideon in chat earlier talking about get ready for a brother on brother matchup. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm sure they're well aware of the horizontal versus vertical debate.
So it looks like Emmett is considering using his own A to hook. He was considering ALOW under Jug. Now it looks like he's maybe considering Woo hooking it with the JO. Both have their merits, both have their downsides, right? I do like Woo. I like getting rid of those O's, but it opens up that triple letter
Yeah.
going both ways. That's a risky move this
Yeah.
early in the game.
I think I like the move of allow more than Woo because of, like you said, the riskiness of Woo. It's important to note that allow does not take an S in the back. Only AWOL, its anagram does, AWOL. So he is going with Woo. It keeps a better leave, which is important. So, it might set him up a little bit better for a bingo, but that riskiness, it's just not great. It also opens up that triple to the left of it, which can get hit with some pretty big scores. But then again, very reasonable play when you're wanting to balance your rack.
17.
He also holds on to the A again for Juga. Next turn,
It's too bad Gideon is so close to brother. You could do like brother.
yeah, that would be amazing. Let's see. So what for Gideon now?
He has a few different options
Yeah.
here, right? So he could do something like both, just hooking it on job,
Yeah.
which I think is pretty solid. It gets that H on the triple. He could also try and hook the H both ways, do something like OH.
Right.
he
Yeah, I
could-
like both. I would probably be debating between Goth and both in my head. The G is probably a bit worse than the B, but is it worth sacrificing 2 points to do that? I don't know. The G and the B are both.
Oh.
Neither of them are very good. They're
I
probably
would
pretty close.
rather.
You
I
would
would
take the points, and yeah,
Oh.
it looks like B both is a bit better. Scores some extra points. The leaves are pretty comparable.
I think
yeah.
I'd rather take the G just because, there's basically all the tiles left in the bag. For me, G is a little bit more bingo friendly. He's going with both.
He's going with both. I like this move.
And that is the Quackle approved best move.
29.
Yeah, it does take a back Y hook, which Emmett has on his rack, so I wonder if Emmett knows that word. And it actually came up in a previous game, spelled a little bit differently. You can do Bothy IE, which was, I think, available on the opening turn of that Nathaniel game that we saw recently, one of them. And now he can play it with a Y, which is also good.
He could also do something like mainly stacking it all the way down.
Right.
Just for the sake of, all those power tiles are still in the bag. Maybe you'll fish one. He could try and find something to reach that triple. He could
Yeah.
do something ending in like SY and do it off of job.
Yeah, I like the play of Amil that he sees. Or he has Amil set up, so I wonder if he's thinking of doing that with jobs. I think it would be a bit better to hold on to the S here and play it with Bothy. just because the S is a really powerful tile, especially because he'd be setting up another S hook or multiple S hooks on this board, making his S even more powerful with that AMYL play.
And right, even if you don't know Bothy, you could stack it with HM.
And it looks like he's just going to play My.
Not a bad choice.
Not a bad choice at all. It definitely is a bit more of a closed option just because HM and MY both do not take an S at the back. You can put an M after HM and you can put a C after MY, but neither of those are tiles he has, and they're both not, there's not too many of them in the bag, so
absolutely.
It's going to make it harder to do some reparallels there.
So Gideon has a bit of a consonant problem right now. Looks like he's considering using his S and going ahead and playing jobs.
Yeah, that seems very reasonable. I like that play a lot, and it's probably what I would do.
It's also the best according to Quackle in terms of the leave that he has. I think that can be a hard lesson to learn. I think when you're first starting out Scrabble, you have to learn the lesson of, hey, don't waste your good tiles. Then when you get a little better, you have to kind of undo that lesson and learn, hey, sometimes cut your losses, get the points, play the S.
Yeah, and I know Gideon pretty well, and I know he's someone who's more fishing oriented. So it looks like he is considering WRANG, I think, is probably what he's looking at to keep that S. But when you look at something like that, you have to think about what is the sacrifice in points that I'm making for this, and also what is it doing for the board? How am I going to use my S after this play? And there's still the jugs hook, but otherwise that play of raying is closing down some important space on the board. Otherwise,
yeah, we're taking out a lot of these S hooks, but he's going with Vars.
Really like that.
I really like that too. Crackle really likes that. I think it shows a maturity in playing when you know when to use your S.
Yeah, I'm very glad to see Gideon do that. I think I've watched Gideon grow up in this game, and I think a younger version of him might have gone for something keeping the S, but I'm glad to see he knows when it's worth it to play an S on this board.
Right, and the S on this board is now only valuable really in one spot to hook a bingo off of Jug. It's also about knowing, like, hey, you can find that 7-letter word, but if you don't have a spot for it, doesn't really do much for you.
Yeah, it looks like Emmett drew some vowels and not really ones that you would want to see. So he's looking at some different plays. A 5-letter word, Liana, which I think he's probably considering making AW, hitting that triple word score at the top.
And
that's
he
what
goes.
He's going with.
Not a bad move. He's opening up the board. He's racking up some points with otherwise really low scoring tiles.
I think I would have considered fishing there, maybe with Ova, keeping AILNS again. Because not only does Ova keep a good leave, it also sets up his L for oval, as well as another S hook. So it does something we call forking the board. I'm not sure if anyone's talked about that on stream so far. But basically that's when you set up 2 bingo lines and it's impossible to block both of them. So, but yeah, I think Liana's totally reasonable. It's fine to take some points, keep this game a little closer. Gideon just played an S, so Emmett might be thinking he has another and wanting to stay within sort of range of a bingo.
Right. I think we're seeing Gideon right now, we're seeing him trying to figure out if there's a bingo going through that I or maybe that L. There is not one. I'm sure he's going to figure that out. So the question for him after that is, what does he want to leave on his rack? Looks like he's separated ENG, which would be an excellent leave, especially given there's an open I on the board.
It looks like he's thinking of playing Ford parallel to Liana on the left side. I really like that. EGN goes super well together. Obviously, it would be taking out that I on the board, but even so, like, he's scoring a whole bunch of points. I think that's a great play. And it looks like, he's going to play that. So nicely done, Gideon.
And once again, the best move, according to I can't imagine playing against a computer and the computer being like, good job.
And Emmett once again with the vowels. We'll see what he comes up with here.
Someone pointing in the chat, pointing out he could have played Gideon, which wouldn't have been That
would have been pretty awesome. He should have put it down at the very least, just for the content. I think Emmett here again might be looking at something similar to that Ova play I was talking about last turn. There's not great options with these vowels, and he still has that S. He's still, like, if he gets the right draw, could draw into a bingo a lot of the time. So Avo, or probably Avo this time since he doesn't have the L anymore. But and Ova, you can't put an S at the end of, only Avo. So I think that makes sense for him.
I totally agree. He's definitely looking to get rid of his O's, and ideally both. If he can't do that, then getting rid of an O and an A is smart, because once we have all these vowels, you got a few too many. The O and the A, when you also have an I, they don't quite go together.
Yeah.
He's also looking at NAOI. I'm not sure where he's looking to play that. Maybe off of Jug.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, another solid choice. He'd be getting rid of a lot of stuff. He would be once again opening the board, and once again putting a vowel right by.
Yeah. I actually think that play of Nai or Naui or whatever might actually be a closing play. You can't put an S at the end of it. He's blocking his S hook. I don't think that would serve his purposes super well at this point. So I think he might be considering some other options, though.
Right. I think I thought of it as opening because it puts that I right from the
Right,
end.
yeah.
It's opening. Little does he know, it's very opening for his brother.
Yeah.
Someone putting in the chat all of the things we can put after Jug, which there are a few words you could reach all the way down with.
Right. That would be awesome.
I know. We're seeing also some great patience and taking their time, which we were missing a little bit in our championship division. Sometimes he's going with Ovine.
It's a good choice.
Yeah, it's not a bad move, and it opens some things up as well.
Yeah, I wonder if Emmett knew the word avion, A-V-I-O-N. It's just a slightly better version of that play because the E is a better tile to keep than the A, so flipping that might have been a bit better. But yeah, I think sometimes when you have these vowel and low-scoring racks, you don't want to keep playing off like two, or you don't really want to get into a pattern of playing two tiles a lot. And so he might have thought, let's just try something else and get rid of a few more tiles, see what we draw, which is pretty reasonable.
We're also seeing this expert strategy of alphabetizing the tiles on his rack. He's like, if I've studied it, I would have studied it this way. So this is how I'm going to look at my tiles. Pretty profesh. Now we're seeing Gideon. He's maybe considering off of Ovine. It would leave him with a really good leave. I do get the impulse to do that, to also try and block those lanes that have opened up.
Right. Yeah. I wonder, all makes total sense. I wonder if he'll think of just EW instead. The A does help the leave, just keeps it a bit more balanced between vowels and consonants. It's a small difference. I'm sure it's not huge. But it's worth thinking about for sure.
Yeah, and I would say the EW is just as risky as AWE in terms of that triple.
Yeah, in general, I might have even looked at playing that in a different spot on the board just to not give back such a huge spot. If you look at where he's playing that, a lot of words you can put the E on top of WE and then a lot of consonants on top of the A and N and reach all the way to that triple letter score, and those plays will score a bunch of points.
Absolutely. I don't know if Emmett has anything that can reach the triple letter.
Yeah, I don't see anything off the top
certainly
of my
can stack something like GAM and then leave for himself OUTS, which is, terrific bingo leave.
Mm-hmm. This is 77.
He's considering MOA stacked in the same spot.
Yeah, it makes sense. Honestly, I would probably play the G. The leave of GSTU is not particularly any more inspiring to me than OSTU, and you get the extra points.
But either way, the right
way,
instinct
close.
to stack
definitely.
there.
And take
Definitely
the
right
points.
instinct.
No need for him to fish, with something like Mug elsewhere for far fewer points. Just because, that's like the most lucrative spot on the board. So good job recognizing that and taking out the spot.
Now we're seeing with Gideon, he's got this problem we've been talking about a lot on this stream where you've got these bingo-friendly letters, but they don't quite make a bingo. So now what do you do?
Yeah.
Right? How do you balance this rack? How do you potentially score some points? There aren't a bunch of really great point-scoring opportunities on this board. The most that Quackle is giving us is a 14-point play. There's a 19-point play, but it would take both the E's.
A lot of the best plays, and none of them are particularly good, use like multiple tiles that are already on the board right now. So I think one thing that stands out is Guenon, Gwenon, to the O-N of Ford and Liana. That would just clean up the rack probably a bit nicer than anything else. And when there's not any scoring options, there's really not much more you can do than that. It's a tough word to spot, though. You have to know it, and you have to see it with the two letters on the board. So I wonder what else he'll be thinking of.
But, To be fair, I definitely don't know that word.
No, yeah, it's a totally tough word. He could also play nugget using those same letters through the G and T of jug and both.
Ooh,
That's a more
clever.
normal word.
It's a more normal word, but it's tricky to spot because
Yeah.
you've got to go through two different words that are already on the board.
Exactly.
Those can be kind of tricky.
Yeah, those disconnected letters, not easy.
I could see an option of, if you don't know some of these words, doing ENG off of my. It leaves you with a really nice balanced track as your leave, and it's once again opening up those lanes. The problem is it's such a close game right now that anything you open for yourself, not a word, but creative thinking.
Yeah, I don't think it would fit on this board anyway, so hopefully he doesn't try that.
But the point being that anything he opens up, he's also opening up for his brother. That's
Right.
just called brotherly love and support.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm interested to see what he does here.
Yeah, this is a really tough turn. I would probably be taking a while here, looking for options and being perpetually disappointed with everything I see because they all just kind of suck. But eventually you got to make a decision. So it's good to not take too much time on these turns because then, at the end of the day, a lot of these decisions are more minor. And, using all that time can come back to hurt you later on.
Right. I wish I could say to him, pal, you're not going to get above like 20 points. You're not missing some big thing that you're going to kick yourself for later.
Yeah.
I would be eager to see him play ENG or ERG even off of my. I think it can be really hard when you have the N and the G together to separate them or to play them because there's still 7 I's out. You're like, the odds of my picking an I are not too bad. Okay, he's going with GAE up at the top. I get that decision.
I wonder if he went through and figured out which letters he could draw to hit a bingo there. I would need to go through the alphabet. Maybe someone in chat can do that because I don't really feel like it. But
maybe an S for retunes. Oh, but
yeah,
he got another.
He got a U, which is definitely not the tile he wanted to draw. Emmett here, though, also does not have any great options. He drew the X, but there's not really a good spot on it for this board. So yeah, I'd be looking for ways to get rid of that P, U, G, like these ugly combinations of letters, and possibly even thinking about setting up my X if there's a way to do that.
I mean, he could even play Pug off of Jug and at least have the option of the X going both ways the next turn. He could do Fax just to dump that X.
I think this might be a turn where it's reasonable to get rid of the S again with Pugs making Jugs, just because it's going to score a lot more than Pug. The S, he's taking out the only good spot for the S on this board, so in doing so, he's kind of saying, hey, the S doesn't really matter anymore. Let's just get rid of it and take the points.
And he's also thinking, if I'm not going to bingo, I better stop Gideon from bingoing.
Right.
Looks like he's going with XIS, which I also get. He's getting good points for that X.
Yeah, totally.
It opens the board a little bit more should Gideon have an A for Axis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but 38 points, nothing to sneeze at.
Brings him
it's
to
really
the lead.
hard. Yeah, it brings him into the lead, keeps him right in this game, which is what you want to do. If neither of you is bingoing, you want to stay like on track, even on score.
Kind of good news for Gideon, though, that he didn't really have any places to get rid of these tiles now. XU, or he could do something like True up above. I think we're probably going to see him play exactly Run, something with that U below. Too bad he can't get rid of an E with it, but not a bad option.
Yeah, for sure. At least getting rid of one U here at least would be the priority, if not two. I'd be looking for a spot to play Untrue, but I don't see that here. So yeah, just something like Nut, I think, or Run. I think the R might be a slightly better tile than the T, which is why maybe I'd choose Nut instead. But again, we're splitting hairs here. Like,
absolutely,
any of those plays would be accomplishing probably the best Gideon can do on this turn.
Totally agreed. And the other nice thing about Run is he's not opening anything up for Emmett.
Yeah, it has no front hooks.
Nothing
really
can go
won't
under.
give
XU can't take an S.
Yeah, it'll keep this board really nice and tight, which I don't know. Some players prefer like an open board. I wonder how Gideon and Emmett tend, because I'm sure they play a lot at home and stuff. I wonder if their games tend to be more closed, more open, and how this is comparing to those. So it'd be interesting to hear from them, or one of them at least, after the game about that.
So we see that Emmett has set up a great vowel dump on his rack, PAUA, but where's that going to happen? That's the problem with something like Run is he really shut down Emmett's opportunity to do a similar thing of dumping the tiles he doesn't want and getting a few points.
Right, yeah. I think he was thinking of playing it with Axis, and maybe there's still something. He could do something like Guar, Guar, I might consider.
Right.
With Axis, because he really doesn't have a lot of options. Or guitar, even.
Oh, guitar is a great word, if he can find it.
Yeah.
Anything getting rid of that extra A, but ideally also getting rid of the U.
Yeah, the U is really, he's been bogged down by it for quite a few, at least a couple turns. Actually, has he? Maybe not. Maybe he just drew that.
Maybe we're seeing it on Gideon's rack.
Yeah.
They're going to be out of
seeing
U
lots
soon is the
I
good
know.
news.
Okay,
he's
so we go to
trying
pra. Yeah, that is not a word. I wonder if Gideon knows that.
Prawn is certainly a word.
It doesn't seem like a hold is happening. I see them recording scores. And Emmett is drawing tiles. So it looks like Emmett is going to get away with a phony here. Just wrap and warp in that 4-letter combination. So that's another interesting dynamic that can arise. In this situation, when you know a player well, you know their word knowledge. You know how many words they've studied and if they know the 4-letter words. And maybe Emmett knows that Gideon is not super solid on the 4s and wanted to take advantage of that. I would not be surprised if there was something like that going on here.
Or on the other hand, just if he truly believes it's a word, which I can understand.
Also,
I always go by the pronounceability principle. I'm like, pra,
there is
pra.
Yeah, there is PRAU is a valid word. He also could be thinking of that.
Absolutely.
But it really also did not give a ton back to Gideon. So again, we're seeing this like very closed board dynamic take shape.
It's true. Gideon has, I guess, a few options in terms of hooking under the R, but all of those are, high risk with very low return.
Yeah, I honestly don't even see anything that looks appealing there. The only real spot I see for Gideon to do anything, because, this FUY thing isn't really helping him. I would be looking at that L of Liana, something like Fluty, F-L-U-T-Y, or F-L-U-Y-T is also a valid word, Floit. Super weird word. But just because there's nothing, like we were talking about, there's nothing really else for him to do on this board, he keeps things tight, and gets rid of those tiles he doesn't really want.
Right. He could also, I think, perhaps a more common word, lefty, L-E-F-T-Y.
Yeah.
Would achieve a similar thing. I think he doesn't have to necessarily worry about, am I going to get so many more, so many more U's or something.
Yeah, and you can also spell Fluty with an EY ending. I didn't know that. So that actually is probably, much better.
I think that would be the best play.
Looks good.
Austin pointing out in the chat, eyeful, which that's a fun word. I really like Fluty or lefty. I would be eager to get rid of the Y, but I'd want to keep one of those E's.
So that is totally changing the dynamic of this board. Playing I, which takes a ton of back hooks. It sets up some scoring spots. So yeah, very interesting play.
Right.
I wonder why he chose to play it there. It scores a few more points, but he also could have done that making Run. I don't know if there was any consideration. I guess that would still have opened up a lot of things. Just no front hooks.
That is a very valuable E. Maybe he's thinking, well, my brother just played PAUA. Maybe he's got a vowel heavy rack, so the E won't be what he needs. He's, lucky that Emmett can't bingo through that at the moment. But Emmett can certainly get a good number of points just by stacking alongside it. And we're at this neck and neck game right now.
Yeah, his best play might not even be stacking alongside I. He has a word T-E-L-E-G-A to the A of Power.
Wow.
Which, gets rid of that G, which honestly is not doing him a lot of good here. The G is really only a good tile when paired with the N, and he does not have that. He's looking to play Clegg. I don't know where exactly, but maybe he just wants to, he's sort of setting those tiles aside as an idea of what to play.
Absolutely. I think, I'm not sure if he knows the word Telega. I certainly, I didn't know that word either. Clearly I need to study my 6s. But I can very much see the merit of if you can't get rid of the C and the G, just get rid of one of them because they're just not working well together at this point.
He could also do, he has a few options with that I spot in that area. He could go parallel, something like TEL or even TELIC, if he knows that word. He also could go through the E of I. He could play Clegg there. He could play Gleet, GLEET. So yeah, definitely a lot of options to consider and weigh. And it's a hard turn for sure.
Absolutely a hard turn. It looks like he's
thinking of Tell.
Which I have to say, my more I'm don't even think I'm as advanced as Emmett is. That's where my brain naturally went. The leave is not as great. I could see maybe doing something. I would want to get rid of at least the C or the G, but Tell doesn't open up terribly much.
Yeah.
And it racks up some points.
Yeah. My one concern with Tell is what it does to those I hooks. It's going to make it a lot harder to block those unless you have one of the hooks. So I takes a back D, a back R, a back S, and those often aren't going anywhere until someone is going to play a bingo in that spot. So that spot is now really valuable on this board where there really isn't many other options. And Gideon does have a D to go there. He doesn't really have, he doesn't have a bingo, but there's also Telly. So actually it will get taken. I should have seen that.
We've been watching a lot of games.
That's a great play. I wonder, is feigned a word though? Yeah, feigned is not a word.
Well, once again, he played it so confidently. This is one where you really know your opponent. You know your mind games. I wonder if it looks like we're maybe getting a hold.
Yeah, I think we got a hold here. Feigned.
Now, this is a tricky one for Emmett because if it's not good, that's a ton of points to have given up. On the other hand, if it is good, he not only is going to be behind all those points, but he's left this whole big bingo lane open. It looks like he is accepting the play.
He might be taking a courtesy draw, which after about 15 seconds, but is he putting them right on the rack? Okay, so he's putting these tiles right on the rack, which generally with a courtesy draw, what you can do is you can take tiles to replenish your rack, but you have to keep them separate in some way from the tiles that you kept on your rack. So in case that word does end up getting challenged, you can know which tiles to put back in the bag so that you can take back the tiles that you played.
Absolutely. I think the move now for Emmett is just going to be to try and take up that triple spot without setting up another bingo lane, because after that one's taken, you can play through the L, you can, I guess, and have something with an I towards the end for Yeti. Those are really your only options.
Yeah.
Price would be a good way to do this.
Yeah, I think it keeps him, probably he'll still be a bit down, or actually no, it'll be a bit down, but 32. Keeps him right in range. No, he won't be down.
It's certainly a very close game. Wow, it's a tie game.
Yeah.
Tie game with brothers. That's some good TV right there.
Yeah, no, I'm glad this is a close game. Though this does mean that if it's close, neither of these players will probably be making it into the final. Like we were talking about earlier, one of them needed to win by quite a large spread, in addition to having Cameron Siegel beat James Donnelly by a large enough spread, or by anything, I guess.
We have some talk in the Twitch stream here about why there's that 1 minute hold rule. I think it's mainly because with the school Scrabble, you have a wide range of experience. You have some games that, if we didn't stop them, would maybe take, go well into the lunch break.
Yeah.
So they just have to do that as a little formality. Duel, I think, great idea, great leave, opening up some lanes.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, back to that conversation about time and, so in school Scrabble, there's a few things that are different than in regular Scrabble tournaments that most viewers are probably more familiar with. So yeah, one thing is the hold rule. Another thing is there's a hard, end of round thing at the end of, I believe, 55 minutes. So maybe, I guess there is a time limit on rounds in the typical Scrabble tournament, but a lot of games do end up taking a bit longer in school Scrabble. We have pretty much new players. Some teams who are playing here are just new to Scrabble or very beginner. So games take a bit longer. So we try to find ways to speed up the games so that things don't drag on too long.
I don't know if this is still a rule, but there used to be a rule about no recounts.
There is still a rule, yeah. No recounts in school Scrabble.
That one was hard for me. I once lost a game where we had already done the recount and found out we had won. but no recount rule. That was a hard pill to swallow.
No, we have under 15 minutes in this round, just under 15.
Looks like Milo and Nathan won their game.
So yeah, that should secure their spot in the final against Nathaniel and Walden, if that is a true result.
Yeah. Wow. What a showdown that will be.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. I think the no recounts thing, it's harder when you're used to playing in adult tournaments. But I do get why they do it. Now being on this other side, I'm like,
yeah, no,
games will go on forever.
Yeah, it would go on so long. Okay, so for Emmett here, what would you be thinking of doing, Hannah?
Oh gosh, I mean, I definitely want to try and even up points wise. I don't feel like he has any plays that would leave him with particularly good bingo letters, so I don't know that I'd be looking to just dump. I think in this case my focus would be on points. Not really sure where the best option for that is.
Yeah, I like this play of B-get on top of dual, making ED and TUP. It gets rid of the B and G, which are kind of clunky tiles. They don't go well together. Also just scores more points than most of his other options and doesn't really harm the board too much. Looks like he's going with Beth. And
Yes.
Oh, okay. I think he's going to move that one spot down. It's a good move. I stand by that that movement.
I absolutely do as well. It's a little risky in that it opens the board. It doesn't necessarily open the board for bingos. I mean, it would just be a lot trickier. You'd have to end in like an ERS kind of situation.
Yeah.
But he scored points, and if I were to get rid of tiles for the sake of bingoing my next turn, getting the B and the H both gone is what I would want to do. The nice thing too about going there is that if Gideon takes that bait and uses the spot, looks like he's considering veto, then that stacking on top of dual spot is still available to him.
That is true. Yeah, so this board is becoming more and more dependent on this one L at the very top that you can play through. We see Gideon has the blank. I'm not sure we actually talked about that, but that was, good draw for him, obviously.
He's going with veto.
He's going with veto. Nice. I might have considered just vet there to keep a vowel, so you would make BE and ET. But it's probably pretty close either way.
And you know what? Veto also shuts down some other scoring opportunities. I don't know that I'd be shutting down at this point just because it is a neck and neck game. If one player gets even like a 40-point play, that is the equivalent of getting a bingo in this game. We might see a no bingo game.
Yeah, that would be kind of crazy.
I think it's
Not
fair to
often.
say.
Oh,
ooh, good
Gideon
tiles.
is drawing kind of well, so we'll see. Oh, he draws the Q though.
Or having some good points being made where closing down the board when you know that you have the blank can be a good option because you're like, well, I know I'm going to have some scoring options.
So he's going with Grice, which is not a word in this lexicon. It's a Collins word, so it's acceptable in the International Dictionary. I think I've seen that one before. But yeah, I wonder, is Gideon holding? It looks like he is.
I wonder if these brothers, and I don't know the answer to this, if they ever play in Collins, and so they can trip each other up
They
that
might
way.
see it a bit on live streams. I don't think they play Collins themselves. It's interesting because Emmett did have the valid word gride available, Gride, which would have been a pretty comparable play. Emmett is drawing. It could just be courtesy tiles. It's hard to know for sure. But yeah, this Grice play also gives Gideon an easy spot to play QI for some points, where otherwise on this board he didn't really have a great way to get some points with those letters. So that could be a consideration for Gideon when he's deciding whether he wants to challenge. Though they're both writing things down, I think, so the play might have just been accepted.
I think it was. QI, I also like that play because I guess the big fear would be a Z play on the triple. But with playing QI, he leaves himself with a fabulous leave.
Yeah, a fabulous leave and an I to go underneath that, even if he doesn't bingo. I'm not sure the pool of tiles. So there's 2 eyes unseen to Gideon. So that is a bit scary from his perspective. Emmett could very well have one of those eyes on his rack and underlap, hitting that triple for a ton of points. Luckily for him, Emmett does not have an eye.
Also, luckily for him, he drew insanely well.
Yeah.
He certainly has a bingo through that L at the top.
Yeah, definitely. He'll find. I have faith that Gideon can find something there. And Emmett is in a tough spot where he has a lot of consonants now and not much to do with them. A lot of low-scoring consonants as well. I wonder, from Emmett's perspective, I might even think about trying to block that L, even something like INN. Just sort of, it doesn't completely block the spot, it only partially blocks it. But Gideon, there's no blanks have been played yet. Gideon has a somewhat high chance of having one. And Emmett, I'm sure Emmett knows Gideon as someone who builds towards bingos a lot. So
Right.
from Emmett's perspective, I'd be really scared of getting bingoed on and getting stuck with not so good tiles. And if there's only one spot on the board to play a bingo and you can at least somewhat block it, and there's not really great options elsewhere, I might do that.
At this point, he can track and look in the bag and see, hey, there's only 5 tiles in there, 2 blanks. So what are the odds that 2 of the 5 tiles are both blanks? I'm thinking Gideon has a blank. And I think that's going to help him make that decision to block things down.
Yeah, it's an interesting decision. He could also choose to open things up for himself. There's 2 blanks out, like you were saying. There's some I's, there's another E, there's an O. There's also the Z and the K. So it's a kind of mixed bag, literally. But yeah, so he could consider something like Tendu, Tendu. I don't love it. It seems to be what Quackle might be liking at the moment. But just to open some more bingo lines. So in case someone hits one of them, maybe there's a chance the other can bingo back and bingo out to win. But yeah, it's definitely going to come down to this turn, I think. I imagine Gideon will find a bingo through the L. I think he can. There's a lot of things, jolliest, things like that. That should be pretty findable. And also, those bingos will open nothing else up and will give Gideon a lead that is impossible to, impossible for Emmett to come back to. Of course, something like INN, like I said, wouldn't even block those bingos, like jolliest. So
Right.
I wonder if there's any other way to, what could he even do?
I mean, the high scoring options here, when you know what's left in the bag, there's a Z and a K and 2 blanks and an S. I mean, we have so many power tiles in the bag right now. Statistically, Gideon's going to have at least some of them, right? So the option here is, the struggle here for Emmett is he doesn't know if what Gideon has is these high scoring power tiles that he's going to play under QI, with making QI, or if he has these bingo friendly tiles and he needs to block the L.
Yeah, I think my instinct would be to block the L here. I feel like
I think so too.
Anything else, and any of those opening plays that I was talking about, it's just like not something that you can really foresee working out so well in your favor when it really just so much more often gives bingos back to Gideon.
I think my problem, though, what I would fear with just playing for a few points is that the game would be virtually tied, and then Gideon wouldn't need to bingo. If he already has those power tiles, if he can do something under the Q and just score 30, 40 points, it doesn't even need to have the Z on the double letter or the K, it could just be the word like kit or kin or KIS.
Okay, so he's going with Fard, I think. Yeah, I wonder if he's just trying to fish himself, get a couple points. I wonder also, the Z could be really big here. If he draws like ZIN or ZINE, that would go underneath QI. Those will score super well, and he draws the Z and the K. Crazy draw.
It's tough he couldn't get the I.
Yeah, the I would have been hugely helpful. So if Gideon bingos here, I think that'll do it for him. And he does have a bunch of options. So...
Oh, this is perhaps the turn before, but he's got bingos through the L. I think jolliest is one of the more obvious ones. The other thing that's going to be in his favor is that Emmett's going to have trouble getting rid of both of those power tiles before Gideon goes out. I'm not sure if there's a place for ZEK or ZEKS.
Yeah, and some of these bingos that we were talking about don't really give back many options.
Especially if you do jolliest, because that J, that you have the only O that's left. You're like, of course Gideon's going to go back in the bag and know that he also he's then going to draw the blank.
Yeah.
He doesn't know that there's still a blank in there.
Yeah, he has a lot of options to bingo. He could play trolleys. And a lot of these just don't give back any options for Emmett here with all these consonants. He really needs some of those vowels that are in the bag to be able to do anything and get rid of the C and K.
You know what's interesting too is I had kind of written this off as one of them winning by enough to make it into the finals, but it is possible if he, I don't know, bingos and gets a lot of points off of Emmett's rack, it could be a slightly bigger game than we thought. I don't know if we're going to get past 100 points.
I don't think it's going to quite get to the spread that was needed to beat Cameron if Cameron also beats James. It's like sort of they needed like this triple thing to happen. They needed Cameron to beat James by 143 points, and one of them had to win by even more than that 143, and probably I don't know exactly what the number was, but it had to be a good amount higher.
Yeah, I do think he's going to find the bingo here. He certainly knows that the L is the only spot to make that happen.
Yeah, it looks like he's actually thinking of just playing light, Lite, underneath. So we only have 3 tiles in the bag, so that would not allow Gideon to bingo next turn. I wonder if he realizes that, which would be pretty interesting. It also would not give much back to Emmett, so this game still might work out in Gideon's favor, though Emmett does have the play of Says underneath Telly for a whole bunch of points. So if I was Gideon, I would really be looking hard for bingos here because that will lock up this game, whereas other plays that don't bingo might make it a little easier for Emmett.
I'm wondering too, maybe Gideon just, for whatever reason, hasn't spotted the L as a bingo lane.
Yeah, it's
if he's
possible.
Thinking he has to hook somewhere, that's not possible on this board. Oh, I got so confused with someone's putting an update that Will Nispel and Noah Lieberman locked up 3rd place with a 7-1 record. Very impressive. And I was like, wait, my brother, I'm so confused. That's my brother's name.
But yeah, congrats to William and Noah on an awesome performance. 7-1 and not making the final is pretty tough, but in such a stacked and competitive championship division, it was really hard. And we had 2 8-0 teams. Or actually, I'm not sure what happened in the Nathaniel game because they were Gibsonized, so I guess they could have lost. But
it's true. But the point being that it was a very stacked field.
Yeah, to go 7-1 and not make the final is very impressive.
And do we know William and Noah's?
So Gideon is not going to bingo. That is huge swing in the end of this game. So that play will score how many points? It brings him up to 316 to 290. So if Emmett sees Says here, it could be close.
He would have to see Says, and Gideon would have to not go out. He's got both blanks.
Honestly, this could go either way. I wonder, can Emmett win with Says? And then there is a chance that I'm sure Gideon has words through that L to go out, but there's a chance that he doesn't see them because it's just really hard with 2 blanks, especially as we've talked about before. 2 blanks in your rack, it's so much harder to find words.
Right, or a chance that he just still doesn't see that L. If he didn't see it last turn, is he going to look on the board and see it this turn? He does have a few, I think, like soiling, like someone's saying in this chat, soiling or oiliest are both a bit easier to find.
Yeah.
I think that would be enough for him to win even with Says because of the K on Emmett's rack. That was a really unfortunate draw of KZ.
So it's 44 for Says, which would bring Emmett up to 334. And then Noisily or Soiling or one of those would score what? 5 points? 321 plus 16.
I think it would be a very close game.
So I'm thinking something 337, 334. If someone in chat could do the math maybe a little better than I am, I'd appreciate that.
But the point is that would make it a very, very close game if he can find Says. Says is
he's thinking of Zeta, which would probably not do it for him in the same way. He's really got to find this Says. I think Telly, that's far and away the play here.
Says is like a relatively new word. I mean, it hasn't always been around, I guess.
But I would definitely expect Emmett to know that word. He knows the 3-letter word.
Absolutely,
it's just a matter of finding that spot. He might have written off that side of the board or that corner completely, just because it looks pretty closed down. You're not really usually going to be thinking about playing a 3-letter word starting with S there, but with the Z, you can score so many points. It's just really his only option here to have any chance of winning this game.
Absolutely. It's going to be interesting. Someone in the chat
Okay,
is
so-
commenting that with that scenario of says that Gideon would still win.
Yeah,
but
that's what
that's
I
given
thought.
that Gideon
Ties
sees
his
the out.
outplay. Yeah, so in these situations, when I'm playing a close endgame, you have to calculate, okay, maybe I am going to lose by 3, but what can I do that is most likely to induce an error in my opponent, and maybe I can squeak out the win. And I think that with Says, it gets him in a position where if Gideon misses his outplays, Emmett could win this game. Now then there's a question after that of what does Emmett do if Gideon misses his outplays, but we'll cross that bridge when he gets there.
That's right.
Looks like he's thinking of Zest now. Maybe he's thinking of trying Spraw.
If Spraw is a word, then that's a great play, but it's risky because if he loses that turn, now all of a sudden
Yeah.
he's losing big.
The problem with that is when that play, so how much would that score?
12, 13, 14, 16.
52 or something? Did I calculate that wrong?
56 because Tad.
Oh, right.
But, that's the kind of thing where if you're Gideon, you kind of got to challenge that.
48, I think, actually.
Okay, 48. The point being that he'd be down by, 30-something points?
Yeah, so it's the kind of play where it puts you up a little, it would put Emmett up too much for Gideon to possibly surmount. Oh, so he sees Says. Okay, that's
exciting.
huge. Because, oh my god, they're both getting really low on time here. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Wow,
Super
exciting stuff. I'm on the edge of my seat. Okay, can he find a spot for Says? Does he see the hook into the triple on the bottom corner of the board? Oh,
Okay, so yeah, Zest would be 50. I can't count clearly. Okay, so he's playing
found it.
Says. Okay, that's great for him. I wonder what... So now it's all in Gideon to find an outplay. And also there's the question of, do they have the score correct? I've found often in school Scrabble, maybe more so with the younger kids, but there's a lot of arithmetic errors when calculating the score, which can come into play when a game is so close. If it's a 3-point game and someone made a 4-point mistake on the turn and there's no recounts, that could be the game. So,
yeah, do they know that it's 316 to 334?
Right. So now it's all on Gideon to find an outplay with 1 minute and 45 seconds left on his clock. Not a lot of time.
Either way, I don't think we're going to see either of these players in the final just because they needed to have a blowout win. But wow, I mean, what we're seeing here is these are two neck and neck players who are brothers. What a great opportunity to get better that they get to. I mean, their spreads are virtually the same too. This is
exciting stuff.
So I do think he had seen iolites, as someone was pointing out, which to me is a much trickier word than finding soiling.
Yeah.
But it's hard with 2 blanks. It's hard to think those things through. Looks like he found maybe oiliest or...
Let's see. Yeah, it's hard to know with 2 blanks. It's impossible to know what exactly he's thinking. And he does need to get this play down within the next minute and circle the 2 blanks. So he's reaching for the blank slip. He's circling.
Just got oiliest.
What is he circling?
I'm thinking it's
oiliest.
the ENT.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. So this is going to be a win for Gideon if they have the scores correct. 337 to 334, I think is what we calculated.
Oh, and they really used up that time. So
they did.
5 points. Then he's going to get 16. Whew, what a close game. And you know what?
Yeah.
5 points for oiliest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, Emmett's maybe a little upset because he played his little butt off. You know what? Their spreads are going to be virtually the same too.
Oh yeah. So yeah, it'll be a 3-point game.
A 3-point game. Wow, what an incredible spread. Incredible game.
Oh man, and you gotta feel for Emmett. He is clearly not happy with how that turned out. I'm glad he found Says, though. It was his best play in that situation.
Absolutely. And little does he know, it could have been a lot worse for him had Gideon found something like Jolliest.
Yeah.
Picking that K was also pretty unfortunate. If he had any other tile, losing off of the points on your rack, that's a painful way to lose.
Yeah, seriously. It's just like having the blank and the vowels in the bag, and he drew ZK, which I guess the Z worked out for him, but having both of those tiles at once, just when Gideon had such flexible tiles, made it really hard for Emmett to be able to get rid of both of them. So he knew that once Gideon was able to go out, that was just gonna those be a few too many points from
Absolutely.
the extra tiles on this rack.
And also tricky because, it's just a hard pill to swallow when your opponent goes out using 3 power tiles. It's like, man, what are the odds that I wouldn't get the good ones in there?
Yeah.
But there were five or six power tiles in the bag at the end of the game. I mean, that's also we started off strong with the J and the S's, and then we saw nothing. This was a no bingo game.
No. Wow. Yeah. What? Not often you see that, especially because these are some high level players who know what they're doing. But sometimes you get bogged down in these closed boards, and you're making 4-letter plays, 3-letter words, and there's not really much space for a bingo.
Absolutely. I think we saw incredible play from both players.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear from both of their thoughts on the phony boards that we saw. Just
Absolutely.
because, yeah, I know. Let's see. So Emmett, we saw he played PRAW and Grice, GRICE, both of which weren't words,
But
and
both
then
of which were very high scoring.
and good phonies if you know that your opponent is not super solid on those shorter words. And I wonder if that came into play. So I'm definitely curious to hear about that. I'm also curious to hear about the feigns turn, what Gideon was thinking there. Maybe he just thought it was a word. Yeah, just hard to know. But yeah, those certainly had a big impact on the game. They were all like relatively high scoring, especially the feigned one certainly swung things in Gideon's favor. And any of those turns in a 3-point game makes it, if you lose a turn, that makes a huge difference. So
it's like what we were talking about towards the end of the game about, hey, should you shut down the board, knowing that you have a blank and an S, and you likely can score some points. Sometimes in games like this, all you need is like a 25-point play to kind of seal the deal.
Yeah, and we're getting word that James Donnelly lost, but is still going to be in the final. So I guess he didn't lose by that 143-point spread that he that would have knocked him out of the finals. So congratulations to James Donnelly and Ruth Lee, our 2 high school division finalists.
We are going to have an epic game for you.
Should be an awesome
those
game.
Finals.
I think also we are going to have that game first in the final. And
Ruth has a chemistry exam she must get home to study for.
She has to drive home all the way to Toronto. It's a long drive.
We are going to do the high school division first. We're going to be taking we'll be taking a brief break, but you will still have some incredible content during when these kids are grabbing some lunch. And then we'll be bringing you the 2 final games of this tournament, which are the high school finals and the championship finals.
Yes, and I believe our championship finalists are Milo Anderson and Nathan Lerlop against Nathaniel Campos and Walden Giesentanner. So those 2 teams have been dominating the competition this tournament so far, and I'm really excited to get to see them play finally. It's a close final to what we had last year, which was Nathaniel and Walden against Milo and Gideon, who we actually just saw has graduated into high school, so he could not be Milo's partner this year. But almost a rematch of last year's final, which came down to the wire. It was super exciting.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you talked about it already. But
that game was, my heart dropped to my stomach. That game was so good.
Oh.
And, we already watched the Tile Blazers, as they call themselves, Nathaniel and Jonathan, play an almost perfect game, according to Quackle. They had very few moves where it wasn't the top move, and every move was in like the top 3 moves, which was just incredible to see these young kids at that level.
Yeah, it was super impressive. I'm blown away by I know Nathaniel is a 7th grader and Walden is not sure what grade he's in, but I think he's 7th or 8th grade. 8th grade, I believe.
I believe so too.
And just the high level of play that these young players are showing is so inspiring and exciting to see.
Inspiring, some say intimidating because they're going to have to play them eventually. I think we are about to get an interview for you with the winner of the round we just watched. Such a tough thing watching 2 brothers duke it out. I'm really excited to hear what the thoughts are on these phonies now that they know there were phonies on the board, or if they knew the whole time. And we'll be bringing that to you in just a moment. And then again, afterwards, some fabulous interviews for you.
Yeah, should be a good interview. Yeah, I'm getting both of them. We'll see.
Hi everyone, this is Nitz Shakti at the 2023 North American School Scrabble Championship. We just got done watching a nail-biting match, round 8, between special treat, Gideon Brasowski and Emmett Brasowski, brothers who have been playing against each other for how long now?
5 or 6 years at this point. It's been a while.
Wow. Okay. So they're hardcore ingrained into this Scrabble scene. Are you guys a part of a club?
Gosh, not really at this point. We don't really play with the DC club. Yeah.
We're both alumni from Stefan's Alasdair Middle School Club, which is where I think we both learned to play the majority of our Scrabble.
Well, speaking of middle school, it wasn't just long ago that Gideon was in the championship division in the finals, which is what we watched last year. And now in the high school division, absolutely kicking butt. I mean, Gideon, how does it feel to be here? And I'm sorry, Emmett, but how does it feel to beat your brother on stream?
It feels good to be here. I was going in, I was like shooting for a top 10 finish. And I had a rough beginning of yesterday. So I like turned it on. I started to actually think about my plays. And I think I've gotten a lot better since last year.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, we just saw you make some fantastic choices on that board over here. I have to know what kind of preparation goes into this. How do you get to this point? And what are you thinking when you're at that board and you have the tiles that you do? Because both of you struggled with some really ridiculous looking racks this game. So tell me what kind of mindset that really requires. Emmett.
Gosh, patience and calmness. It's pretty easy to get really out of sorts when you're faced with a bad rack. For example, one vowel in the end game on a super closed board. But it really just takes going through all of your options over and over and over again to see if you can find something good. And like that last turn, I didn't find says for like 3 or 4 minutes, and then that was far and away the best turn in the position. So it just really takes patience and the ability to calm down.
Oh, definitely. Yes, we were watching you, go through your rack, seeing if you would find says, seeing if you would make, that best move possible. But we saw something similar on Gideon's end too. Gideon, you were stuck with 2 blanks at the end. And yes, blanks are a complete boon. But when you're in a game that close, what was going through your head?
Well, I as soon as I drew the second blank, which I was almost positive was on my brother's rack, I thought about it. Originally I saw Oasis and I was like, oh my God, that's an out. And then Oasis is 5 letters. So I need to probably work on that a bit. And then I looked around and I saw the only out was through the L that I know. I'm sure there are obscure 6s that I don't know. But I saw that and I worked out the math and I calmed down a little bit. I was still expecting some like crazy play and I didn't see says. In fact, I mistracked and I did not see the S on my brother's rack.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Nasty shock. Then I had to do the math again and see if I would be able to pull it out.
Yeah, that last move it could have gone either way. And here's the thing, Quackle, the engine that we use to tell us best moves, actually had the idea that you should go 1 by 1, playing 1 tile off at a time because it was such a blocked board. I mean, that takes quite a perception shift. Have you ever had games like that where you've, stuck your opponent with a high scoring tile, either of you?
Sure, Q6 happen pretty often, but it really is kind of fun to just slow play the end of the game if you know your opponent can't go out before you.
Yeah, only ever with Qs, sometimes with like a J or something, but never with 4 tiles on his rack. That did not cross my mind.
Right. I mean, believe it or not, if you had played a bingo on the time that you played light, Quackle thought that there's a possibility for you to be stuck with the Z or the K. Yep. So thinking back to that game, I know I want you guys to shake it off. It was very close, very nail biting. But what was that maybe 1 play or 2 plays, a move that you really thought stuck out to you that you cannot go, can't wait to go back and think about again and again?
Probably challenging Feigned for 45, which I did hold for a while and then decided not to challenge for whatever reason. So I would go back and look at that. If I'm looking at one of my moves, I guess I dropped a phony 4. So maybe I would go back and look at that, but I was pretty positive that he wasn't going to challenge. So I thought I could get away with it, and I did.
Yeah, I think just to Emmett's point, we've played each other probably over 100 over the board games. This happens to be our first official school Scrabble matchup, but we matched up in like adult tournaments like 5 or 6 times by now. I know that his strong suit is when there is an open board, he knows probably almost 10,000 more words than I do, like study words. So that's his biggest advantage. So my play was run, which I thought closed off the board very nicely to prevent any bingo lanes. I was thinking of blocking off the L later. I decided not to do it and ended up helping me out. But I think run was the play that I was like, okay, block off the bingo lanes, like keep it to a slow couple tiles per turn game.
Wow, that's really smart. I mean, we definitely see people, take the strategy against players that they know are, have more knowledge than them. You want to block off that board, make sure that there's not as many opportunities for bingoing or obscure 5s and 6s. I have to know, you guys mentioned, playing multi-day tournaments with adults. What's the difference? How does it feel here to be at the School Scrabble Championship versus playing a very long multi-day tournament where you have game after game after game? And, it's not just 8 games that decide what you do, but a huge variety.
I mean, this tournament is 1,000 times more stressful than a longer tournament because each game matters so much. There's really no room for error in a short tournament. Yeah, so it's kind of even more high stakes almost.
Personally, I like shorter tournaments better, especially over the 2-day format. I get flustered very easily. So having the time to calm down a little bit between games and not going like straight in. For instance, in a recent tournament I had, I missed like a bingo, an out bingo to win. And the next game, like I'm expected to just like go back there. I got like super annoyed at myself and I played like really poorly the next game. So I enjoy having a little bit of a break between games.
Would you guys say that you've improved a lot, playing each other, learning all these different words? Do you think this is something that you've seen yourself do better and better over time?
Certainly.
Yes.
And do you think there's somebody who could speak to that? Perhaps Stefan Fatsis, of all people, who has seen you grow up?
Maybe just a little, yeah.
Stefan, all right. Stefan Fatz is in here with us in the winner's corner, and he is the brains behind this, and he has known Emmett and Gideon for how many years now?
5 years. Emmett and Gideon came. We bumped into them at Emmett joined the club at our middle school when he was in 7th grade. And then Gideon, our families ran into each other at a basketball game. And the question was, well, could Gideon play too? And it's like, yeah, Gideon can play too. So Gideon started coming to the club, even though it wasn't at his school. And I'm just going to say straight up right now, the result of this game, I felt like Jeremy and Beth, Gideon's and Emmett's parents. It was excruciating for me to watch. And it's hard. I mean, I was rooting for both of them. Emmett is a senior in high school. Gideon, I love you, but you know that I've been rooting for Emmett to crush this tournament and go out with a bang. You've got 3 more years after this. So I'm a little bit heartbroken and also a little bit, excited for Gideon for doing so well here. And, they both finished in the top 10 in the end. They both had totally respectable performances against really strong players. And regardless of the records or the winning and losing, I love these guys. And having them in this club and be part of my Scrabble life has been a complete and total joy for all these years. And I hope it'll go on for many, many more years because they're both too good to not be here. And they're both going to be expert level players in a really, really short time.
That's so well said. Thank you so much for that, Stefan. And with that, we want to, thank Gideon and Emmett for their time, for that wonderful game, for, what a nail-biting experience with just a spread of 3 points. That's ridiculous. All that family aspect to it added the spice, but that game, so close the entirety of the time. Yeah, that's the zinger right there. So Stefan, you're not allowed to go anywhere because we're bringing in none other than Will Anderson to help us, pick this man's brains, see how it goes behind the scenes. Thank you so much, Emmett and Gideon. Great job, both of you. Yeah. Can't wait to see you guys at more tournaments.